Chapter 861. Noah. When Noah walked into the house, Hestia threw herself at Noah, hugged his waist, and buried her face in Noah's belly. She kept rubbing against him with tears in her eyes. "You're finally back. If you don't come back, I'll be worried to death. Didn't I tell you that I'll go to the lower floors and won't be back for a while?" Noah, who was hugged by Hestia, could only hug her back with a bitter smile on his face. "Also, I've told you before, don't hug me for no reason. When are you going to change this habit of yours? This is not a habit. I won't do this to others." Hestia lifted her lovely face from Noah's arms and puffed up her cheeks. "This intimate contact is only limited to you, my first family member and the closest person to me. I won't do this to anyone else except you." In the heavenly realm, Hestia was one of the three goddesses known as the Virgin Goddess. Although Hestia's petite and cute appearance and her rather unrestrained intimate behavior towards Noah did not make people think that she would hug him at any time. As a matter of fact, hugging a man of the opposite sex like this would only do that to Noah, who didn't care about her poverty and wealth, kindly took her in, and even joined her clan. As a matter of fact, Noah had never seen Hestia being so intimate with anyone before. At that moment, Noah could only continue to smile bitterly, but his eyes were fixed on the living room. Over there, the person who had just opened the door with the key and walked into the house was like a little police officer facing an instructor. His back was straight, his hands were pressed against his thighs, and his face was full of nervousness and sweat as he spoke. Hello. His voice was slightly out of tune. It could be seen that the person was indeed quite nervous. It was a boy who looked to be about 14 or 15 years old. He was wearing the armor of a novice adventurer and had a short knife at his waist. He had white hair and red eyes, which made people think of a rabbit. The boy not only stood very straight as if he was saluting, but he also suddenly bent down and bowed to Noah. As he did so, he introduced himself in a nervous tone. I'm Bel Crone." He was an adventurer who had only recently joined Hestia's clan. Please advise me." "An adventurer who joined Hestia's family?" Noah looked at Hestia with some surprise. "In other words, he's a new member of your family?" Hestia let go of Noah's waist and raised her head with a proud look on her face. "That's right, Bel is a new member of the clan tribe that I recently accepted. I met this child by chance on the street, and because he was looking for a clan tribe that he could join, I invited him." "I see." Noah understood. "So that's why he has the key to this house?" Yes. Hestia was like a small adult. She seemed to want to pat Noah's shoulder, but because of her height, in the end, she could only pat Noah's waist. "You are the leader of Hestia's family. You have to take care of the newcomer." "Leader?" Noah was speechless. Generally speaking, in a family, other than the main god, there would be a leader who was responsible for the entire family's affairs, and even managing the entire family's members and leading the family's activities. Finn was the leader of Loki's family. And the leader of Hestia's family, other than Noah who joined the family from the beginning, who else could it be? However, unlike Loki's family, Hestia's family currently only had two members, Noah and Bel. So, this so-called leader was really in name only. Of course, this was Noah's idea. Bel, on the other hand, bowed to Noah with an imposing manner. Please advise me. Leader." "All right." Noah scratched his cheek and stretched out his hand to Bel. "Since we are both members of the same family, I hope we can get along well." Yes. Bel finally reacted. He hurriedly stretched out his two hands and respectfully shook Noah's hand with a grateful expression. I will work hard." Noah was a little uncomfortable being treated with such a grateful attitude by Bel. He could only turn his head and look in Hestia's direction. Hestia deliberately lowered her voice and whispered into Noah's ear, "Before this child joined our family, he had visited many of the families in Eulalia. However, because this child came from outside the city and was just a child in the countryside before, those family clans with some power looked down on him. Therefore, he seems to be very afraid that you will object to him staying here. Is that so? Noah sighed and looked at Belle. Don't worry, I won't look down on a person because of his background or identity. As long as you have a good character, I won't object to you staying here. Really? Bale's nervous face was suddenly filled with joy, and he made a solemn vow. I will never do anything bad. Leader. That's good. Noah smiled bitterly. There is just one room left in the house. You should have moved in already, right? There were a total of 3 rooms in the house, facing the main hall. Noah's room was in the middle. Hestia's room was on the left. The room on the right was empty. Since Belle had the key to the house, he should have moved into the empty room already. Yes. Belle was so nervous that he began to sweat. If it's inconvenient, I can sleep on the sofa in the main hall. It's not a problem. I didn't say that. Noah's mouth twitched. Well, anyway, Belle has been an adventurer for a shorter time than you. Noah, as the leader, you should teach him how to fight in the dungeon and earn money. Hestia clapped her hands. Let's end our first meeting here. It's rare that all the family members are here, so let's have a small party as a welcome party for Belle. Belle was flattered. No need, great goddess, how can you spend money for me? Well, don't be so polite, Belle. Hestia waved her hand and said generously. Don't look at us like that. We're actually very rich. The corner of Noah's eyes twitched fiercely when he heard that. Could it be that this Lolita goddess was treating all of his personal property as the public property of the clan tribe? That's why, Bale, go out now and buy all the good stuff you can find, Hestia said as she handed a purse full of gold coins to Bale. It's okay to spend all of it. Looking at the money pouch, the corners of Noah's eyes twitched. He was speechless. That pouch seemed to be the allowance that Noah had given to Hestia half a month ago when he was preparing to go to the dungeon. Because of Noah's return, Hestia generously took out the rest of her living expenses. That must be it, right? However, the simple-minded Belle seemed to believe Hestia's nonsense. He took the purse full of gold coins with a look of admiration and immediately walked out of the house and went to the street. After Bale left the house, Hestia's little adult appearance immediately disappeared. Instead, she said to Noah with a playful smile on her face. Before that child comes back, do you want to upgrade your ability value? Noah rolled his eyes in annoyance, but he still nodded helplessly. After all, Noah was very concerned about his growth in the past half a month. In the living room, Noah sat on the sofa with his arms bared. His back was exposed to Hestia, who was sitting behind him. Hestia dripped a drop of divine blood on Noah's back and began to upgrade her ability value. Perhaps because there was a second member, Hestia did not casually pull people into her room and make them lie on the bed to upgrade their ability value. Instead, she did it in the living room. A faint blue light constantly fluctuated on Noah's back. Mysterious words moved back and forth. Hestia stared at the words. Clearly, she was very concerned about Noah's current progress. After a while, Hestia's eyes shone with a strange light. Chapter 862. The blue light on Noah's back slowly dimmed until it completely disappeared. Thus, the ability value update ended. Noah immediately turned his head and looked at Hestia. Hestia smiled at Noah's gaze and handed the ability value status that was translated into the common language by the sacred text to Noah. Noah silently took it and looked at it. Noah Doria LV. 1 Power, SSS, 1441, SSS, 2000, Durability, SSS, 1472, SSS, 2000, Dexterity, SSS, 1468, SSS, 2000, Agility, SSS, 1477, SSS, 2000, Magic Power, SSS, 1453, SSS, 2000, Magic Skill, Protection from the World, Permanent Skill. It was equivalent to luck. Events that were directly related to luck would eventually lead to the most favorable outcome. Half a month ago, before Noah went to the lower and deeper levels of the dungeon, his ability value had broken through the upper limit of the SS stage and reached the SSS stage. Originally, the SS stage was a stage that had never appeared before, let alone the SSS stage. Therefore, Hestia had a headache about this kind of ability value. Noah had an even bigger headache. Because even after reaching the SSS stage, Noah still couldn't meet the requirements to level up. Without any other choice, Noah decided to go to the lower and deeper levels of the dungeon and train for a period of time. Now, after half a month, Noah was still at the SSS stage of his all-around strength. However, the proficiency of each basic ability was still at 2000, not even a little bit more. It was as if the proficiency couldn't be increased anymore and finally reached a certain requirement and didn't need to continue to increase. Noah's eyes lit up. He quickly turned his head and looked at Hestia. Facing Noah, Hestia revealed a holy smile that was very consistent with the name of a goddess. Congratulations, Noah. Hearing this, how could Noah not understand what the result was? The SSS stage of the SSS stage, and the proficiency of each basic ability has reached 2000. This foundation stone has finally filled you, the vessel, and allowed you to evolve to the next stage. Hestia didn't disappoint Noah's expectations. She told him the news that Noah had been waiting for about a month. Now, you can level up. Everyone suddenly became silent. Phew. Noah let out a sigh of relief. He felt that the extreme training for the past month had not been in vain. I was worried, what if I couldn't meet the requirements? I'm not worried. Hestia shook her head with a smile. Whether it's potential, talent, possibility, or real strength, you have subverted my understanding again and again. If even you can't level up, then I really don't believe that any child in this world can level up. Hearing Hestia's great evaluation of himself, Noah just smiled and looked at the level column of the ability value recorded on the record paper in his hand. At this time, Noah's level was still at LV1. This was because Hestia had not yet extracted the EXP needed to level Noah up to LV2. You still need to decide on the development ability, right? Development ability. It was an ability that could only be learned when leveling up. This ability was different in nature from the basic ability. It could further develop and strengthen special or professional abilities. For example, most blacksmiths could obtain the development ability called forging, which made the quality of the equipment they made better, and even added some functions and effects. Another example was that most of the pharmacists who could concoct various elixirs could obtain the development ability called reconciliation, which made the effects of the elixirs they concocted better, and they could concoct a variety of recovery medicines with magical effects. Therefore, what kind of development ability could be learned depended on what kind of actions the person who received the favor had taken and what kind of experience points they had accumulated. Noah was neither a blacksmith nor a pharmacist. Naturally, it was impossible for him to obtain the two development abilities of training and reconciliation. If he didn't get any experience points worth mentioning, then even if he leveled up, he might not be able to learn the development ability. On the contrary, as long as he got the appropriate experience points, it was possible to have multiple development abilities. But when leveling up, he could only get one development ability. Hestia didn't directly help Noah level up, probably because of the development ability. For example, there were multiple development abilities for Noah to choose from. It seems that you've already guessed it. Then I'll get straight to the point. Hestia didn't beat around the bush and directly said to Noah. Currently, there are 3 development abilities for you to choose from. 3? Noah curiously asked. Which 3? The first one is the Hunter ability, which is used to deal with monsters. It's a type of ability that can only be obtained by defeating a large number of monsters in a short period of time. It's quite difficult to obtain. Hestia said. This ability can strengthen the ability of the user when they encounter monsters of the same type that they have fought and gained experience points from. It's very suitable for raiding dungeons. It's a very valuable ability. As long as the adventurer's goal is to raid dungeons, they would want to obtain this ability the most. The second one is the Magician ability, which is used for magic. Only those who are good at magic and have a good grasp of magic can learn this ability. Hestia looked at Noah with a strange expression. This ability can strengthen the power of magic, expand the area of effect, increase the efficiency of mental strength, magic power, and so on. Only with this ability can one be called a high-level magus. Those who haven't learned magic and those who use magic half-heartedly have no way of obtaining this development ability as a choice for leveling up. Hearing this, Noah immediately laughed. Hestia looked at Noah with a strange expression. Undoubtedly, Noah's 3 magic options were still empty. How could he obtain the magician ability as a choice? But Noah did have a good grasp of magic, and his mastery of it was very high. Although it was just enhance and magic canon, which were relatively basic magic in the world of Type Moon. Noah, who didn't mention this matter, could only change the topic. Then, what about the last one? The last one is called mystery. Hestia's expression became serious. To be honest, I really didn't think that you could obtain this ability, Noah, but I suggest you choose this one. Why? Noah asked curiously. Is this ability special? Of course it's special, Hestia said. In the whole of Eulalia, there are less than 5 people who have this ability. Don't you think it's special? Less than 5 people? Noah's curiosity was piqued. What kind of effect does this ability have? To put it simply, this development ability is like a miracle that we gods are best at, right? Hestia said. If the person who obtains this ability is a blacksmith, then he or she may be able to create weapons that are more precious than magic swords. If the person who obtains this ability is an apothecary, then he or she may be able to create elixirs that can bring people back from the dead. A long time ago, there was even a person with this ability who created a legendary item that could make people immortal. In the eyes of us gods, this ability is already related to the domain of gods. Noah raised an eyebrow. If this was really the case, then this ability was indeed very special. People with this ability will even attract the attention of the gods. If the news of you having this ability spreads out, I don't think there will be a single god who won't try to steal you from me, right? Hestia tried to persuade him. So, if you don't choose this ability, then it's really a waste. Just choose this one. Chapter 863. Mystery. It was a development ability that could bring about miraculous powers. In Eulalia, which was the center of the world, there were less than 5 people who had this development ability. It was easy to imagine how precious this development ability was. Moreover, this was an ability that even the gods said had touched upon their domain. If one wasn't a fool, then they would generally choose this development ability. Noah also fell into deep thought. To be honest, Noah was also more inclined to choose mystery. After all, although the other 2 development abilities could play a very good role, but for Noah, they wouldn't be of much use. For example, Hunter, although this ability could strengthen the user's ability to a certain extent when facing monsters that they had previously fought and won, causing many adventurers to be very inclined to choose this ability, but Noah wasn't a standard adventurer. He couldn't always go into dungeons and kill monsters. He couldn't even stay in this world forever. Moreover, although it was said that it could strengthen one's ability, there was no clear indicator of how much it could strengthen one's ability. Therefore, for Noah, this ability could be considered dispensable. Then there was the development ability of Magicite. This development ability was more suitable for Noah than Hunter. Since the magic ability could strengthen Noah's magic and magic, then this development ability that could strengthen various kinds of magic should also have an effect on Noah's magic and magic. However, Noah's real strength wasn't magic and magic, but authority and Gate of Babylon. If authority was compared to a peerless divine ability, then Gate of Babylon was Noah's divine weapon. Not only did he have a peerless divine ability, but he also had a divine weapon. In the end, where Noah was strong, it was clear at a glance. Therefore, if mystery didn't appear, then perhaps Noah would have chosen Magicite. Now, the development ability of mystery was more attractive to Noah. It was really hard to say what the so-called miraculous ability was. Therefore, rather than choosing the development ability of a magician to strengthen his secondary magic and spells, Noah would rather choose the slightly more suspenseful mystery. Although a God Slayer had a miraculous ability to activate God, he didn't know what it was. Noah looked at Hestia, who was patiently waiting for him to make a decision, and said, "Don't worry, I'm not going to do it. Then I'll choose mystery." Hearing Noah's choice, a smile blossomed on Hestia's cute little face. Seeing this, Noah couldn't help but mutter in his heart. Was Hestia also a god? For these gods who were so bored that they came to the lower realm to find excitement, and even forbade the use of their divine power, there was nothing more interesting than novelty. Therefore, once an adventurer had a rare skill or ability, it would definitely attract the interest of these gods, and it was possible to turn the world upside down. Hestia wasn't as bored as those gods, but in the end, she also came to the lower realm because the heavens were too boring. Seeing that Noah had an extremely rare ability to choose from, she hoped that Noah would choose it, right? Of course, Hestia was already considered good, at least she would respect Noah's choice. As for the other gods, they would not hesitate to extract the mystery ability the moment it appeared, and make decisions for the people of the spawn without permission. Then I'll help you upgrade it now. Hestia took out a sharp needle again, pricked her finger, and dripped her divine blood on Noah's back. While helping Noah to upgrade his ability value, she said so. "Oh, Noah, you're a god. You're a god. By the way, you should already know that after upgrading your ability, your basic ability will return to 0, right?" Noah nodded with his back facing Hestia. Yes. After upgrading, no matter who it was, the basic ability part of the ability value would be reset to 0, and they would continue to hone it from the initial stage. However, that didn't mean that the power obtained at LV1 would disappear. Although the basic ability would return to 0, the basic ability of the upper level did not disappear, but remained as a hidden ability. Even if it couldn't be seen in the ability value, it did exist. Therefore, after upgrading, Noah's basic ability would all return to 0, but the actual enhancement would only be stronger than before the upgrade. Generally, it could be understood that the ability after upgrading was a few % increase in the basic ability of the upper level. For example, if Noah's strength at LV1 was calculated as 100, and the increase during the upgrade was calculated as 50%. Then, when Noah upgraded to LV2, his strength was 150. Therefore, it was normal for the basic ability value to be reset to 0 after the upgrade. However, Hestia suddenly said this. "It's just that your situation is special." Special? Noah was startled. "What do you mean?" "It means that the EXP you have accumulated in the past half-month has exceeded the amount needed for the upgrade. Even if the EXP needed for the upgrade is consumed, you can still use the remaining EXP to improve your basic ability." Hestia sighed. "So, after the upgrade, your basic ability should not be in the initial stage, and it should be improved, right?" After that, Hestia also completed the final update. After pressing the blue light blooming from Noah's back and the mysterious dark text on Noah's back, she copied the translation of the ability value on a new record paper and gave it to Noah. "In a month, not only did you break through the upper limit of the ability value several times, but you can continue to improve your basic ability after the upgrade. You are really a freak." Noah didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he took the paper from Hestia's hand and checked his current ability value. Noah Doria LV. 2 Power, SSS, 2000, S, 967, Durability, SSS, 2000, S, 976, Dexterity, SSS, 2000, S, 971, Agility, SSS, 2000, S, 988, Magic, SSS, 2000, S, 954, Mystery, Magic, Skill Frowny Face Protection from the World, a permanent skill. It was equivalent to luck. Events that were directly related to luck would eventually lead to the most favorable result. Development ability was the same as basic ability, it was also divided into high and low levels. Just like basic ability, the strength of development ability was also divided into 10 stages, S, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, however, there was no such thing as proficiency in development ability. When one could upgrade to the next stage completely depended on the EXP accumulated. Those who obtained the forging ability could upgrade themselves by continuously forging weapons and defensive equipment. People who obtained the harmony development ability could upgrade by constantly concocting elixirs and recovery potions. Naturally, Noah, who obtained the mystery, could only upgrade by constantly using this ability. All-around ability value S stage? Noah smiled. I didn't waste my time in the dungeon. Well, the stronger you are, the more proud I am to be your main god. Hestia stood up from the sofa and pretended to be mature as she patted Noah's head with a gratified look, but the words that came out of her mouth were like this. If Loki, who originally wanted to poach you, knew about your growth, he would definitely beat his chest and stamp his feet. How about I go and show off in front of him next time? Noah immediately rolled his eyes. These so-called gods, they were really trying to find ways to seek stimulation all day long. At this time, the door was opened. Baal, who was holding various bags in his hands, walked in with difficulty from the outside and looked at Noah and Hestia with tears in his eyes. Leader, great God, please help me. Seeing this, Noah and Hestia looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. Okay. Hestia shouted with vigor. I'm going to enjoy myself today. Hestia said as she pulled Noah's hand and pulled the helpless Noah up. Today was destined to be a warm day. Chapter 864. Early in the morning, traces of cold air still permeated the air, making the temperature of the morning seem more or less low. However, because of the dungeon, Eulalia was never really deserted. That was why this city was known as the busiest city in the world, and also the center of the world. Under such circumstances, many adventurers had woken up early and were fully armed. Some teamed up with each other, while others carried huge backpacks. They started walking towards the Tower of Babel. Surprisingly, Noah was also among the crowd. Besides Noah, there was another person. That was Baal, who had just joined Hestia's clan and was considered Noah's junior. At this moment, Baal was walking a distance behind Noah as though he wanted to show that his status was lower than Noah's. While following behind Noah, he was looking at the fully armored adventurers around him with a pair of red eyes with curiosity written all over his face. Everyone, as expected, you all have good equipment. Noah heard a trace of envy in Baal's voice. However, there was no covetous desire. Baal had just become an adventurer. Although he had entered the dungeon, he was still wandering around the 1st to 4th levels. The 1st to 4th levels of the dungeon could be said to be the true beginner's area. The monsters that appeared were mainly the lowest type of goblins, and there were not many types. As the top few levels of the dungeon, the 1st to 4th levels were naturally easier for beginner adventurers to conquer. As long as one was not surrounded by multiple monsters, there was basically no possibility of losing one's life. It was generally believed that LV-1 adventurers could conquer the 1st to 12th levels of the dungeon. Based on the strength and frequency of appearance of the monsters on each floor, if the basic ability was used as an evaluation, it could be roughly distinguished like this. Floors 1 to 4 were the floors where one's basic ability had reached stage I and stage H. The 5th to 7th levels were safe for those with stage G and stage F abilities. The 8th to 10th floors were safe for adventurers whose basic abilities had reached E, D, and C levels. On the other hand, the 11th to 12th floors were the floors that adventurers of the B, A, and S stages could attack. In other words, Baal, who was wandering around the 1st to 4th levels, was at stage I to stage H. He was a complete beginner. Therefore, Baal's weapons and armor were the most basic items bought from the guild. They were the ones with the lowest damage and defense. As a 14-year-old boy, he was naturally envious of the good equipment of others. However, Baal was able to handle this envy well. Before long, Baal had retracted his gaze from the surrounding pedestrians and looked at Noah. Leader, how deep into the dungeon are we going today? Baal said that he had not learned any combat skills and was just an ordinary village boy. As the leader, Noah had to teach him the most basic combat skills. Therefore, today, Noah was mainly here to bring Baal along. Today's plan is to teach you the most basic combat skills, Noah replied without turning his head. Therefore, we don't have to go very deep. Just stay on the 1st to 4th levels. What? Baal was surprised. But the great god said that you're a LV2 advanced adventurer. Even if you bring me to the lower levels, I'll be fine. That's true, but if you just want to learn how to fight, there's no need to specifically pick the stronger monsters on the lower floors, right? Noah glanced at Belle and asked curiously. What's wrong? Do you want to go to the lower levels? That. Baal scratched his head shyly. Yes, a little, oh? Noah was even more curious. Why do you want to go to the lower levels? When Noah uttered these words, Belle straightened his back at once as his eyes sparkled and he uttered, That's right, that's right. That's right. That's right. I want to find a chance encounter in the dungeon. What? Noah almost couldn't believe his ears. What did you say? He. Baal said shyly. Because I've been looking forward to the fateful encounter between the protagonist and the heroine in the story. Therefore, I want to do it once, ere. Noah looked as though he had swallowed a fly. He was speechless. You became an adventurer because of this? Yes. Baal said excitedly. When my grandfather was alive, he always told me that it's a man's romance to meet a beautiful girl in the dungeon. He also said that a man should have a harem. That's why I came to the dungeon. Is that so? Noah laughed dryly and looked away from Baal as if he couldn't bear to look at him. Then I wish you success, yes. Baal seemed to take Noah's words as encouragement and became more excited. I'll do my best. Noah could only look at Baal as though he was looking at an immature child. He led the excited Baal into the dungeon. About half an hour later, Baal's excitement had completely disappeared and turned into despair. Roar. Amidst an orderly beastly roar, approximately 10 humanoid wolf-like monsters as tall as a human brandished their sharp claws that flickered with arcs of light, viciously pouncing towards a figure in front of them. Ah! The white-haired, red-eyed, rabbit-like youth who was being targeted by the pack of lycanthropes held a short knife, but his entire body was trembling. Facing the pack of lycanthropes that pounced on him, he let out a miserable cry and turned around to flee without hesitation. Why are there so many monsters on the 1st level? At the beginning, all adventurers had to pass through this level. The monsters on the 1st level rarely gathered in groups. At most, there would be 4 or 5 of them. But now, Baal was facing a group of monsters. He was being chased by more than 10 wolf-like monsters. Frankly speaking, with Baal's current ability, not to mention 10 wolf-like monsters, even one would be difficult for him. Therefore, Baal was so scared that tears almost came out of his eyes. Without any hesitation, he ran back. Noah said helplessly at a place not far from Baal. Why are you running? Attack them. Attack them? Baal shook his head as he ran. I can't. Leader. I can't. Don't say you can't as a man. Noah almost face-bombed. Although your ability is still low, if you have a certain level of skill, it won't be difficult to defeat 10 monsters on the 1st level. Very difficult. Very difficult. Baal cried out with tears streaming down his face. None of the monsters there are weaker than me. How can I defeat 10 at once? Hearing this, Noah sighed heavily and stopped talking. He looked around and picked up a few small stones from the ground. At the same time, a wolf-like monster pounced on Baal's back. Baal, who happened to turn around and see this scene, was scared out of his wits. Sensing the fishy smell from the saliva dripping from the lycan's big mouth, his face turned ashen. Shio! Just at this moment, a small stone shot out like an arrow from a bow, fiercely shooting towards them. The stone didn't hit the wolf-like monster. Instead, it was aimed at Baal. Bang! With a muffled thud, Baal felt his knee being hit by something. Although it didn't hurt, he lost the strength to support himself and fell to the ground. Who? Just as Bel's knees gave way and he was about to kneel down, the werewolf pounced on top of Bel, who was half kneeling. Shio! Immediately, the second stone shot out and landed on the joint of Bel's hand that was holding the dagger. Bang! There was another muffled sound. Bel, who was hit by the pebble on his arm, did not even have time to react. His hand involuntarily swung out. Poochie! In the next second, the dagger in Bel's hand flashed across the wolf-like monster's neck and cut open its windpipe. The wolf-like monster's roar stopped abruptly. Blood dripped down onto Bel's lifeless face. Chapter 865. Pung. With a muffled sound, the lichen whose throat was slit by Bel's dagger directly fell to the ground. Its body exploded and turned into ashes, leaving behind a very small magic stone, only the size of a fingernail, that fell to the ground. Bel, whose face was still dripping with lichen blood, seemed to be completely unable to believe everything in front of his eyes. He stood there in a daze, not even moving an inch. Roar! At this moment, the other lichens also pounced one after another. Standing in the distance, Noah gazed at the lichens madly pouncing on Bel's body. Compared to Bel, who was foolishly looking at the ashes scattered on the ground, he weighed a few small stones in his hand and raised them high above his shoulder. With a mysterious force, he threw the small stones one after another. With the sound of the small stones piercing through the air, almost every joint of Bel's thin and weak body was hit. Bel's body was completely in a state of not being controlled by him, but it was extremely nimble. Like a puppet pulled by an invisible string, Bel's body was stiff as he jumped up and down, avoiding the bite of the lichens. At the same time, Bel's hand that was tightly holding the dagger was also uncontrollably swinging the small stones one after another. Sometimes it was swung towards the lichen's neck, and sometimes it was swung towards the lichen's chest. Under the rays of cold light, it brought out patches of blood. That was the blood of the lichen's body that was cleanly cut open. In less than 3 minutes. In less than 3 minutes, Bel was stunned for not a second in a state of consciousness. His whole body seemed to have become not his own. When he stopped, his surroundings were already full of the lichens that were chasing him fiercely just now. Peng 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 peng. In a series of muffled sounds, the lichens lying on the ground all turned into ashes, only leaving behind small magic stones. Looking at this scene, Bel was completely stunned. How is it? Noah, who was weighing the small stones in his hand, said with a smile that was not a smile. Now, can you still say that you are not a match for these monsters? The same body. The same ability value. Falling into Bel's control would only result in him running away pathetically. However, under Noah's control, he was able to take care of all of them effortlessly in less than 3 minutes. Moreover, he did not even let those monsters touch him. In addition, Noah had used pebbles to hit Bel's body and made him act according to his own thoughts without causing him any pain or injury. When Bel came back to his senses, he found that he could no longer hide his admiration for Noah. Guild leader, you're so amazing, is that so? Facing Bel's admiring gaze, Noah said faintly. Then, do you want to become so powerful? Bel nodded his head like he was pounding garlic. There was almost no hesitation during the entire process. In response, Noah simply said. Then, you should have remembered all the movements just now, right? Bel held his breath. The action just now? It was probably the same movements he used when fighting the lichen under Noah's control, right? Bel lowered his head in embarrassment. Because there was no reaction, I didn't remember clearly. I'm sorry, since you didn't remember clearly, let's continue. Noah weighed the pebbles in his hand and smiled. Don't worry, even if you don't remember clearly, I'll make your body remember how to fight. Be prepared. At this moment, Bel felt a chill running down his spine. It was almost noon when Noah and Bel reappeared at the entrance of the Tower of Babel. However, the two of them were in completely different states. Noah was still as calm as when he entered the dungeon. Even his clothes were not stained with dust. It was as if he had just taken a stroll in the dungeon. His posture was still so otherworldly. Baal, on the other hand, looked like he had been severely drilled. His shoulders drooped, and he swayed his arms weakly like a corpse as he staggered out of the dungeon. The two of them formed a sharp contrast and attracted the attention of many people around them. Ignoring the surrounding gazes, Noah glanced at the staggering Baal and did not know whether to laugh or cry. That's enough. Didn't you just train for the whole morning? Do you really need to be like this? Woo. Baal said in an aggrieved tone, as if he was a child who had been bullied. But, I'm really tired, so, didn't we come up for a break? Noah rolled his eyes and sighed. It seems that before your body is completely used to fighting, I'll have to teach you the breathing technique. Otherwise, your small body won't be able to withstand much training, right? The main reason why Noah was able to train day and night without feeling tired was because of the breathing technique that allowed him to quickly recover his physical strength. Otherwise, even Noah wouldn't have been able to let his body withstand that level of continuous tempering. It could be said that Noah's breathing technique played a great role in training. Breathing technique? Baal raised his head with difficulty and looked at Noah strangely and tiredly. Well, what's breathing technique? Well, you'll know soon enough. Noah waved his hand. Now, let's go to the top of the Tower of Babel. The top of the Tower of Babel? Baal raised his head subconsciously and looked at the ceiling of the hall on the first floor of the Tower of Babel. He asked suspiciously. Why do we have to go to the top of the Tower of Babel? Don't you know? Noah shrugged. Although the Tower of Babel is mainly used as a cover for the dungeon, the upper floors of this building, which belongs to the guild, have other uses. Other uses? Baal blinked his eyes. As you can see, the first floor of the Tower of Babel is a place where adventurers who intend to enter the dungeon have to enter. The second floor is a public facility of the guild. There is a shower room, which provides various services for adventurers. The third floor is a money exchange center. If you find it troublesome to exchange money at the guild headquarters, you can also exchange magic stones and dropped items for money on the third floor. But there are many people, so you have to queue up. Noah raised a finger and pointed upwards. The fourth floor of the Tower of Babel and above is used as a storefront for the commercial clan members to sell weapons, armor, elixirs, and props. Baal, even if you're new here, you should have heard of the clan members of Hephaestus, right? The fourth floor to the eighth floor of the Tower of Babel are the shops of the clan members of Hephaestus. All of them? Baal was stunned. As for the area above the storefront floor, it is a place provided by the guild for the main gods of the spawns, who are second to none in Eulalia, to live. Noah lifted his head and looked at the ceiling as though he could see the main gods through the ceiling. He sneered. You have to be careful. Even if there is no reason, they may target you. Baal's expression suddenly became confused. Well, just take it seriously. Noah withdrew his gaze and spread out his hands. Anyway, let's go upstairs. But, aren't the shops of the clan members of Hephaestus? Baal shrunk his head. Why are we going there? Isn't that obvious? Noah smiled indifferently. Of course, we're going to get you a set of decent equipment. Baal was stunned and immediately screamed. With this shout, the surrounding adventurers all cast strange and ferocious gazes at them. Noah slapped Baal's head. What the hell are you screaming for? But leader. I heard that the equipment of the clan members of Hephaestus is unimaginably expensive. Baal panicked. Are we really going there to buy equipment? Since I said so, I won't joke with you. Noah rolled his eyes. Anyway, you have to get a set of decent equipment. If you always wear the standard equipment given by the guild, you're telling everyone that you're a rookie. Don't tell me you can stand it. After that, Noah grabbed Baal's collar and dragged the helpless Baal forward. Chapter 866. Wow, although Baal was extremely reluctant to come, when he arrived on the fourth floor of the Tower of Babel, he was still conquered by the scene in front of him. What presented in front of him was an environment that was like a luxurious palace corridor. However, around such an environment, there were rows of beautifully decorated shops. On the plaque of these shops, there was a mark such as Phi Alpha Iota Sigma Tau Omicron C, which told others who these shops belonged to. They really are all shops of Hephaestus's spawn. Baal looked around with some amazement, but when he saw the price of the excellent equipment displayed in the glass windows outside the shops, his face immediately stiffened. It couldn't be helped. Not to mention a newbie like Bell, even the LV3 and LV4 adventurers who were known as Level 2 adventurers would be shocked by the price tags on the equipment displayed in the glass windows, right? If one were to describe it in one sentence, it would be that almost all of the equipment here were extremely precious and valuable, and were worth millions of RMB. As mentioned before, adventurers were divided into superior adventurers and inferior adventurers. Among them, the superior adventurers referred to the senior adventurers who had reached LV2. The adventurers who had reached LV2 would be crowned as the third-level adventurers. The adventurers who had reached LV3 and LV4 would be crowned as the second-level adventurers. The adventurers who had reached LV5 would be crowned as the first-level adventurers. Not to mention those inferior equipment, the equipment in this world was also divided into first level, second level, and third level, which corresponded to the first level adventurers, the second level adventurers, and the third level adventurers respectively. These graded equipment were all excellent equipment that could only be made by senior blacksmiths who had learned the development ability of forging. In addition to their own sharpness and precision, they would also be endowed with various strange effects, such as increasing lethality, enhancing durability, and even increasing ability value. There was a limit to these effects. Therefore, the price of the graded equipment was simply a world of difference from the price of the inferior equipment. The equipment displayed here were all at least of the third level of good equipment. Naturally, the price would not be lower. Baal even saw a level 1 weapon that was worth 30 million Varus. He shook his head desperately and looked at Noah with a trembling face, his voice carrying a hint of pleading. "Leader, let's not buy equipment here. It's too expensive, and I can't afford it. Moreover, I'm only at LV1 now, how can I equip the equipment of the superior adventurers? I know, if the equipment is too powerful and you become dependent on it, it will be very disadvantageous to your growth," Noah replied almost in an almost indifferent manner. "That's why I won't give you a full set of armor that can be worn by high-level adventurers. The armor will be suitable for you. As for weapons, I feel that it's better to give you a passable one. That way, you'll be able to deal with many dangers in the dungeon." Weapons? Bell couldn't help but look at a dagger displayed in the window of a shop closest to him. He stared at the 8 million yen sign on it and shook his head fiercely. Still won't do. Even if it was just a weapon. I can't afford it. Noah laughed bitterly when he saw the price of the dagger that Baal was looking at. "Don't worry, I won't give you a level 1 weapon that can be used by a level 1 adventurer. I intend to give you a level 3 weapon. A tier 3 weapon?" Baal's expression relaxed a little, but he was still a little depressed. "Is that really okay?" "Since I said it's okay, don't be so wishy-washy." Noah ignored Baal and went into a nearby shop. "If you don't want to come in, I'll help you choose." "What?" Baal panicked and looked to his left and right. He didn't dare to stay in the high-end shopping street alone, so he followed Noah into the shop. Just as Noah and Baal entered the shop, a female shop assistant wearing a staff uniform greeted them with a businesslike smile. "Welcome, 2 guests." "Hi." "Hello." Baal nervously returned the greeting, which confused the shop assistant. Fortunately, Noah was there, so it wouldn't be a joke. "Excuse me," Noah said to the shop assistant. "We'd like to take a look at the equipment." "Okay." The shop assistant immediately welcomed Noah with an even brighter smile. "Excuse me, are you looking for weapons or armor?" "Weapons," Noah said directly. "Do you have a dagger? Bring us over to have a look." "Okay." The shop assistant warmly welcomed Noah. "This way, please." Under the shop assistant's lead, Noah and Baal, who had been looking around nervously, came to a corner. There was a glass cabinet here. Inside the cabinet, a number of well-made daggers were neatly arranged, with a price tag hanging in front of them. There was a level 1 weapon that cost a few million Varus. There was a level 2 weapon that cost more than 1 million. There was also a level 3 weapon that cost less than 1 million. These were the daggers that Baal was accustomed to using. You choose. Noah stroked his chin and let Baal choose. Just choose what you like. Baal's face was full of uneasiness, and he instinctively wanted to decline, but Noah looked at him urgently. Baal, modesty is a good thing, but being indecisive is definitely not a good thing. Noah glanced at Baal. Instead of rejecting it, I hope that you can accept it. If you feel that it's not good to accept such a valuable item, then use this weapon to save your life in the dungeon. You can earn tens, hundreds, or even tens of times more money than this. This sentence was like a sharp sword that pierced Baal's heart, dispelling his last bit of hesitation. I understand. Baal swallowed his saliva and extended his finger to touch one of the daggers. I'll take this one. Baal chose a simple-looking dagger. The blade was bright silver, and the handle was black. The entire dagger had a strange luster. It was indeed a level 3 weapon. The price tag clearly stated that it was 700,000 yen. This price was quite high for a level 3 weapon. Noah smiled and looked at the shop assistant. Then, we'll take this one. After coming out of the Tower of Babel, Baal's equipment had been completely changed. He was no longer wearing the standard armor that only had the most basic defensive function. Instead, he was wearing a steel-colored, or perhaps pure silver-colored armor. He had a breastplate, knee guards, gauntlets, shoulder guards, and other light armor that could only protect his elbows, wrists, and waist. In addition, the dagger, which was rated as a level 3 weapon, was also attached to his back. If Baal was a rookie when he first entered the Tower of Babel, then he looked like a professional adventurer at this moment. With a level 3 weapon and this set of equipment, as long as you don't rush blindly, you will be able to survive in the dungeon even if you are exploring alone. Noah scratched his cheek as he advised Linley, don't rush blindly. Even if you want to meet a girl, you have to think about whether you can survive. Yes. Baal felt a sense of responsibility due to his expensive equipment. He finally stopped fooling around in the dungeon and showed a serious expression for the first time. I'll work hard. This sentence was exactly the same as what Baal had said in the morning when he came over with Noah. However, this time, Baal's words were rather forceful, causing the corners of Noah's lips to curl up slowly. Well, it's almost time to rest. Noah looked at the sky. Let's continue into the dungeon. Yes. Baal answered firmly. However, the next moment, a delicate and tender voice stopped Noah and Baal, who were about to move to the entrance of the dungeon. Wait. Handsome brother and white-haired brother over there. Chapter 867. Wait. The handsome guy and the white-haired guy over there. Noah and Baal, who were about to go to the dungeon, stopped when they heard the voice. There was no other reason. Although they did not know whether the handsome guy referred to Noah, the white-haired guy must be Baal. After all, Baal's hair color was very rare here. At least, in this world, Noah had only seen Baal's hair color. Noah and Baal turned their heads and looked behind them. At this time, Noah and Baal were in the hall on the first floor of the Tower of Babel. Noah and Baal saw the adventurers and supporters coming and going, but none of them stopped or looked at Noah and Baal. Obviously, they did not stop Noah and Baal. Then, that delicate and tender voice rang out once again. Brothers, I'm down there. Hearing that, Noah and Baal looked down at the same time and finally saw the owner of the voice. It was a little girl who was about 1 meter tall. She was wearing a loose cream-colored robe with a hood and carrying a backpack that was several times bigger than her body. Looking at how petite her body was, if she wasn't an 11 or 12-year-old girl, then she was probably a small human, right? Logically speaking, it was impossible for an 11 or 12-year-old girl to come to the Tower of Babel with such a big backpack. Therefore, Noah and Baal immediately treated each other as the hominid tribe. On the other hand, not only did the young lady who looked like a dwarf wrap herself tightly in a loose robe, but she also wore a hood. Only her chestnut-colored hair and cute little face could be vaguely seen. Her round eyes stared straight at Noah and Baal with a sweet, fawning smile on her face. Although it's very sudden, brothers, do you need help? Help? Baal was confused. It was not that he did not know what help was, but because it was too sudden, he did not know how to react. Supporters? Noah wasn't as confused as Baal. He raised his eyebrows and looked at the petite girl in front of him, but he didn't say anything. The reason was simple. That was because the petite girl wasn't looking at Noah at all. She was only looking at the confused Baal. No. Rather than looking at Baal, it would be more accurate to say that he was looking at the equipment on Baal's body, as well as the dagger protruding from his waist. Moreover, Noah, who was good at reading people's body language, could vaguely sense it. Although the girl in front of him was smiling sweetly like a flower, not only was her smile too fake, there wasn't even a trace of emotion in her cute eyes. It was like facing Noah and Baal was just a part of his job, a part of his daily routine. This made Noah choose to keep his mouth shut. He just looked at the petite girl and didn't say anything. However, just because Noah didn't speak didn't mean that others wouldn't let him speak. That. Baal snapped out of his daze and looked at Noah for help. Leader, what should we do in this situation? It was obvious that Baal, who had a timid personality, could not handle such a sudden situation. Leader? The petite girl was stunned by Baal's words. Then, the way she looked at Noah changed. It was as if she just realized that she couldn't ignore Noah, but the smile on her face didn't change. This is so rude. So this handsome brother is the leader of the team. It's Lily's negligence. It was no wonder the girl thought so. After all, compared to the fully armed Baal, Noah was only in casual clothes and didn't even carry any weapons. It was easier for others to think that he was an adventurer. Naturally, they wouldn't think that Noah was the leader of the adventurers exploring the dungeon. Then, handsome brother, may I ask if your team needs support? The girl smiled innocently. Her round eyes hidden under the hood and bangs were also exposed as she stared at Noah. Don't be fooled by Lily's appearance. In the line of support, Lily is quite capable. If possible, can Lily join your team? Oh. Noah looked at the young girl who had been calling herself Lily and asked. In other words, you intend to be a support for our team, so you came to us? Yes. The girl who called herself Lily nodded. Because the handsome brother and the white-haired brother didn't carry any backpacks, Lily thought that the two of you didn't have support in your team. May I ask if Lily is wrong? No, this isn't wrong. We are indeed not support, and there is no support in our team. Noah shrugged. But if you intend to join our team, you have found the wrong team. Huh? Lily exclaimed in surprise. Why? Don't the two of you intend to let the support help? When exploring the dungeon, the presence of a support was very necessary. If an adventurer had to kill enemies, pick up dropped items, and carry a heavy backpack on his back, he would be greatly restricted. For example, when killing enemies, the backpack would be a hindrance or even a burden. Another example would be to personally pick up the dropped items after killing monsters, and the time would be wasted. If the adventurer used this time to continue exploring the dungeon, the rewards would increase, and the efficiency would increase. Therefore, without a support, the adventurer's exploration speed would be greatly reduced, and it would become a troublesome burden. The rewards would also be greatly reduced. In this way, everyone would want to have a supporter in their team. It was a pity that Noah didn't need a support. After all, Noah had a huge storage space that could be used to retrieve various items. Most importantly, Noah and Baal weren't there to explore the dungeon. Instead, they were there to let Baal, who was a novice adventurer, learn some combat skills. Since they weren't there to explore the dungeon, they naturally didn't need a support to retrieve items. Therefore, Noah said, apologies. We're only going to find some monsters in the dungeon to train our skills. We won't be serious about conquering the dungeon. Even if you find us, we don't really need a support. Lily's smiling face froze. Needless to say, Lily must not have thought that Noah and Bale's purpose was actually this. Just when Noah thought that Lily was going to give up, he didn't expect Lily's expression to return to normal as she said with a smile. Even if it's for training, there will be times when the two of you will defeat monsters. Then, Lily will be of use. So, please, let Lily join your team. After saying that, Lily looked at Noah expectantly. She looked like she really wanted to join Noah and Bale's team. We're only going to explore levels 1 to 4. The magic stones and dropped items aren't worth much. Noah folded his arms. Even so, you intend to join us? Levels 1 to 4? Lily lowered her head slightly. When she lifted her head again, her face was full of smiles. It's all right. Anyway, Lily won't be able to find other adventurers to take me in. Even if I earn a little, it's better than nothing. That's what people say. Noah shrugged at Bale. Bale, what do you think? Leader, you can make the decision, Bale said hurriedly. I don't have any objections. Then it's all right. Noah lowered his head and stared at the petite girl named Lily. His dark and deep eyes flickered slightly, and there was a hint of a smile that wasn't a smile flashing past. If you think it doesn't matter, then come with me. Lily felt that the pair of dark eyes gazing at her seemed to be able to see through her. She couldn't help but shudder. But even so, the petite young lady named Lily was still smiling stiffly. Thank you very much. The girl's gaze shifted to Bale's direction. Her gaze landed on the short sword on Bale's back, and she retracted her gaze. Seeing this scene, Noah curled his lips and smiled. Looks like I won't be bored today. Chapter 868. Dungeon, Level 4, Ha! Roar. In a tunnel with little light, the fully armed Belle wielded a short knife that flashed with a bright silver luster. He was entangled with a Leakin that was much taller than him, exchanging blows back and forth in a battle. Bale's movements were a little messy, but he was gradually becoming more proficient. This was because, while Bale was entangled with the Leakin, small pebbles would be shot out from behind him in a fluster. The pebbles would ruthlessly smash into the joints of Bale's frail body, causing Bale's body to naturally move. Over time, as Bale's movements became more and more proficient, the number of pebbles that were shot at him slowly decreased. In the end, there was not even a pebble left. Thanks to this, although Bale's movements were becoming more and more proficient, if he encountered some attacks, the small pebbles would no longer help him dodge, causing Bale to frequently be struck by the sharp claws and fangs of the Leakin. If it wasn't for the fact that Bale was no longer wearing the lowest grade equipment from the guild, he would have suffered quite a few injuries. However, this was what Noah should be doing. Noah's goal was to let Bale master certain battle techniques, not to constantly help Bale defeat monsters. If he had to constantly take care of Bale, then when Bale entered the dungeon by himself, could he still rely on Noah's help? That was definitely not possible. Hence, as Bale gradually grasped battle techniques, Noah did not intend to help him anymore. He wanted to let Bale get used to fighting monsters. Only actual combat was the fastest way to improve. Of course, even though there was no practical help, Noah continued to point out Bale's flaws in battle. Don't always retreat when you hear the monsters roar. That's just to scare people. When it's time to attack, attack. Yes. You don't have to constantly attack the monster's body. You can target its weak points, such as its eyes, throat, or mouth. That way, you can kill it in one hit. You can also attack its limbs. That way, the threat of the monster will be greatly reduced. Yes. You have to learn how to make use of all your advantages. Don't just block and dodge the monster's attacks. Don't forget, you still have armor on you. That werewolf alone won't be able to break through your armor. You can take the attack, then seize the opportunity to finish off your opponent in one strike. Yes. Your dexterity is higher than the monster's, but you don't have to show off your speed every time. Since you've dodged the monster's attack, you can stop now. Don't go overboard. Yes. Thus, it didn't take long for Noah to find fault with him to decrease the number of times. Looking at Bale, who was fighting back and forth with the Leakin, Noah weighed the remaining pebbles in his hand and smiled. His progress is quite fast. That kid has a bright future ahead of him. Hearing Noah's words, Lily, who was carrying a large backpack, stood at the side. She glanced at Noah from time to time, and there was a faint shock in her eyes. Noah's guidance aside, Noah's amazing skill in throwing pebbles to let Bale act according to his own ideas really shocked Lily. At least, Lily had seen many great adventurers, but none of them could do the same thing as Noah. Lily couldn't help but ask hesitantly. "That, Sir Noah, are you also a LV-1 adventurer?" "Not long ago." Noah didn't look back and responded with an indifferent attitude. "However, I've been upgraded recently. Now I'm LV-2. Is that so?" Lily smiled. Sir Noah is really amazing. Although she said that, in her heart, Lily was even more shocked than before. Lily had seen a lot of LV-2 adventurers. However, let alone LV-2, even LV-3 or LV-4 don't have Noah's skills, right? A LV-2 can have such skills. Who on earth was this person? That, then again. Lily pretended to ask casually. "Which clan do Sir Noah and Sir Bale belong to?" "We are members of Hestia's clan. Currently, there are only 2 people in the clan, Bale and I." Noah glanced at Lily and said. "So, which clan does Miss Supporter belong to?" "Yes, Sir Noah." Lily lowered her head and let her expression be covered by her hoodie and bangs. "Lily is a member of Sumo's clan." Hearing Lily's words, Noah stopped weighing pebbles. Today, Noah was no longer the outsider who had just arrived in this world and didn't know anything. Although Noah, who knew the importance of information, went into the underground city every day, he still collected all kinds of information in disguise. And the mainstream of this world was the various family clans established by the gods. Of course, the information collected by Noah was generally the most about each clan. Among them, Noah had more or less grasped some information about the Sumo's clan. This Sumo's clan was a typical exploration-type clan. Almost every member of it was an adventurer who often mingled in the underground city. However, this clan tribe was also handling some commercial activities. Noah heard that the people of this clan would take out some wine to sell in the market from time to time. Although there were not many varieties in circulation in the market, it was said that the taste was impeccable and was one of the most sought-after goods in Eulalia. As for the scale of Sumo's clan, it could almost be said to be extremely outstanding in Eulalia, and its strength was the backbone of the backbone. There were no particularly outstanding strong people, not even a level 1 adventurer, but the number of members of Sumo's clan could almost be regarded as the largest in all of Eulalia. However, the main god of this clan, that is, the god named Sumo, was a little strange. It was said that Sumo had never attended any occasions so far, and even did not communicate with other gods at all. He was very reclusive. Noah still remembered that when he asked Hestia about Sumo, there was a moment when Hestia could not think of the name Sumo. It was conceivable how faint Sumo's presence was. "Since you have a clan, why do you want to team up with us who are different from you?" Noah turned his head and looked directly at Lily. "Compared to us who are likely to have conflicts because of different clans, you can team up with your companions in the clan, right?" "What are you talking about?" Lily said with a smile. Lily is a professional supporter. Even the people in the same clan tribe don't think highly of Lily. Even if Lily desperately begs them, they won't let Lily join. Otherwise, Lily wouldn't have teamed up with other clan tribe members. Professional support? Noah seemed to understand what Lily meant. Although the support was a non-combatant, there were differences. Some support was a rookie adventurer in the clan. In order to support the superior adventurers of the same clan, they would be responsible for acting as support. It could be said that they played the role of learning how their seniors fought. There were also some supporters who were hired by the team to support them. This kind of support was often no longer an adventurer for various reasons. They were looked down upon by those adventurers and were ruthlessly treated. Lily should be the latter, right? In order to be able to eat, Lily can only join the team of other clan. Lily said this with a fake smile. Lord Noah, don't look down on Lily. Lily is already very grateful. Hearing this, Noah kept looking at Lily and did not look away. Lord Noah. Lily's pretty face was slightly red. Lily will be very embarrassed if you keep looking at me like this. Noah did not speak, but still looked at Lily. After a while, he looked away and narrowed his eyes slightly. Although she said that she was grateful and embarrassed, Noah did not see any similar emotions in Lily's eyes. While Noah and Lily were chatting, Baal's battle was almost over. Then, Lily should continue to work. Lily seemed to change the topic. Lily will go first. After that, Lily walked in the direction of Baal. Looking at the petite girl carrying a huge backpack, Noah sighed. Another person with a story? Chapter 869. The sky gradually darkened. When the sky was almost completely dark, Noah led Baal and Lily out of the Tower of Babel and to the central square. Lily, who was carrying a backpack that was several times larger than her body, came before Noah and Baal and bowed. Thank you, lords, for your help today. No need for that. Baal did not seem to be good at handling other people's kindness. His timid personality made him flustered. I didn't do anything to deserve your thanks. Please raise your head. No matter what, thank you, lords. Lily raised her head and looked at Noah and Baal with the same innocent smile on her face. Then, regarding the distribution of the loot, Lily didn't finish her sentence, but her intention was clear. Since she had joined the team, her motive was very simple. She wanted to get a share of the loot. In the same team, under normal circumstances, the spoils of war would be divided equally. However, Noah did not intend to share the loot equally. Although we are talking about the loot, there should be very few magic stones and dropped equipment, right? Noah said. I don't want it. You two can share it, Lily said. That day, they were not there to earn magic stones and dropped equipment. Instead, they were there to let Baal learn some combat skills. Furthermore, Baal's combat skills were not very mature. Hence, after buying the equipment at noon and entering the dungeon for half a day, Baal did not defeat many monsters and did not obtain any equipment. Furthermore, the first to fourth floors were only accessible to the best of the best. The magic stones dropped by the monsters there were pathetically small. He estimated that the magic stones that he had earned in half a day would not even be enough for 3,000 Varus. Noah did not want to share the money. Then I don't want it either. Baal said hurriedly. It's because of me that you earned so little. Moreover, I have learned a lot today. I don't want the money. Is that so? Lily maintained her smile. Then, I won't reject your kindness. I hope that if I encounter any difficulties in the future, you can continue to employ me. After saying that, Lily bowed again. I'll take my leave. Lily did not wait for Noah and Baal to reply. She blended into the crowd and disappeared. After a while, Noah turned around and walked in the direction of the Tower of Babel. Let's go. Baal was taken aback and chased after him. Leader, is this the way home? We have to go to the Tower of Babel before going home. Noah shrugged his shoulders. Otherwise, you won't have a weapon tomorrow. No weapons. Baal was stunned. His hand unconsciously reached for the back of his waist. Leader, what are you talking about? My weapon isn't. Halfway through his words, Baal's face suddenly froze, and his pair of eyes became rounder and rounder. Seeing this, Noah could not help but laugh. Your weapon is gone, isn't it? Yes. Baal's weapon, the level 3 weapon worth hundreds of thousands of Varus, had disappeared from Baal's waist without a trace. Commander. Baal turned his head stiffly and looked at Noah, tears welling up in the corners of his eyes. Don't worry about me. Noah sighed. Your weapon was stolen. I found out long ago. It was stolen? Baal's face quickly turned pale. For Baal, who was born in the countryside and was very poor, hundreds of thousands of veris was a huge amount of wealth. In less than half a day, Baal had lost such a huge amount of wealth. It was easy to imagine how he felt. However, Noah also said that he had found out that Baal's weapon was stolen long ago. Or rather, Lily joined Noah's team because she wanted to steal Baal's weapon. That's right. The one who stole Baal's weapon was Lily. When Lily had been secretly glancing at the weapon on Baal's back, Noah had more or less noticed Lily's purpose. After all, it was a weapon worth hundreds of thousands of veris, and it was a product of Hephaestus's spawn. As long as it was a product of Hephaestus's spawn, as long as it was of a certain grade, it would be allowed to use the Hephaestus brand. On the scabbard of Baal's weapon, there was a symbol representing the brand of Hephaestus's spawn. Seeing that symbol, anyone would know that the weapon in the scabbard was a product of Hephaestus's spawn, and it was worth hundreds of thousands of veris. It was natural that someone would have bad intentions. At first, Noah thought that if Lily really did make a move on Baal's weapon, then it would not be too late to deal with her. But later, Noah changed his mind. If that money can let her live a better life and turn over a new leaf, then it's worth it. Noah looked at the pale Baal and smiled bitterly. Don't think too much. If I really want to make money, I only need to stay in the dungeon for a day, and I can earn several times more than that. Do you understand? Yes. Baal hung his head dejectedly. In this way, Noah and Baal spent another half an hour in the shop of Hephaestus's spawn and bought a second level 3 weapon. Then they left the Tower of Babel. The moment they left the Tower of Babel, Noah felt a burning gaze on his back from the direction of the Tower of Babel. In response, Noah just narrowed his eyes and left without looking back. On the top floor of the Tower of Babel, Freya, who was holding a glass of red wine, looked down with a seductive smile on her face. I didn't expect that child to have such a beautiful companion with such a beautiful soul. I wonder which spawn he belongs to. Freya suddenly pursed her lips as if she could not hold back her laughter. Forget it. Although that child is also very beautiful, compared to him, he is still too small. Comparisons were odious. Comparisons were odious. If it was in the past, Freya would definitely chase after such a beautiful soul. However, after discovering Noah's soul, which was brighter than the sun, Freya realized that the beautiful souls she used to chase after were simply too small. Compared to you, no matter what kind of child he is just a small flame. Freya said in an extremely infatuated tone. I only have you in my eyes. I love you. After saying this, Freya stretched out her hand as if she wanted to grab something. Her expression was very lax. Beside her, the strong orc lowered his head and was expressionless. After a long time, he murmured. Noah. Dole, Lord God. Baal opened the door and walked into the house in a dejected state. We're back, oh? You're back? Hestia, who was lying on the sofa and reading a book, sat up. When she saw Baal's dejected appearance, she was startled and looked at Noah who was walking behind Baal. What's wrong with him? It's nothing. Noah spread his hands. He just can't get over it. Can't get over it? Hestia tilted her head in confusion, but she didn't ask. Instead, she glanced at the dejected Baal and noticed his equipment. Did you change your equipment? Well. Noah scratched his cheek. He can't always wear the standard equipment given by the guild, right? You're right. Hestia nodded and looked at Noah with a gratified expression. As expected of Noah, you know how to take care of the younger generation. Hearing Hestia's words, Noah suddenly smiled. You have one too. Me? Hestia was stunned. Noah then put the bag he had been carrying in his hand on the table in front of Hestia. A gift for you. After saying this, Noah returned to his room with a smile. Hestia stared blankly at the bag on the table. After a while, she reacted and picked it up. Inside the bag was a very luxurious piece of clothing. It was a formal dress. Hestia involuntarily hugged the bag in her arms and closed her eyes. The corners of her mouth slowly rose into a satisfied smile. Chapter 870. In the following period of time, Noah was not in a hurry to continue to improve his ability value, but to hone Baal's fighting skills. He had been wandering back and forth between the first to the fourth floor. If Noah wanted to continue to improve his ability value, he would probably have to go to the lower and deeper levels. Once he went to the lower and deeper levels, it would take him 2 to 3 days to go back and forth. Since he had been away for half a month, if he left immediately after coming back, Hestia would probably complain. Therefore, Noah was not in a hurry. He gave himself a period of time to familiarize himself with his current strength. He mixed with Baal in the first to fourth floor while observing his current strength. After leveling up to LV2, even if he did not use Authority and Gate of Babylon, Noah's strength did indeed make a leap. Not to mention the enhancement brought by Magic to Magic and Magic, just the 4 basic abilities of Strength, Durability, Dexterity, and Agility to Noah's body made Noah benefit a lot. Now, even if Noah did not use Enhance Magic, he should be able to fight with Saber and Berserker in close combat. Of course, he would still be at a disadvantage. At this rate, when Noah was promoted to LV3, he should be able to compete with Saber and Berserker, a servant at the level of Berserker. If he leveled up to LV4, he would definitely be able to suppress Saber and Berserker in close combat. As for leveling up to LV5 or even LV6, or perhaps higher levels, Noah felt excited just thinking about it. After being clear about his strength and having a visual estimate of his future development, Noah naturally wouldn't be in a hurry. Therefore, he decided to stay in Eulalie for the time being. On this day, Noah and Baal still went down to the 4th floor of the dungeon, moving forward in the same dim passage. Pa-G, along with the sound of cracking, a wall in front of Noah and Baal suddenly broke apart, allowing 2 skinny monsters to break free from the inside. They raised their hands proudly and let out unpleasant cries. Goblin? Noah took a step back out of habit. Bel. Yes, Commander. Bel nodded his head and drew his dagger from his waist. He then charged towards the 2 goblins. G.A. G.A. The 2 goblins discovered Bel and roared at him as they charged at him. Their eyes were bloodthirsty, and they didn't seem to care about the human charging at them. They were only concerned about whether the human's flesh was enough for them to feast on. Under such circumstances, the distance between the 2 sides was rapidly closing. Whoosh! At this moment, Baal's speed suddenly soared, and in a flash, he dove under the 2 leaping goblins. G.A. G.A. The low IQ goblins didn't expect the human in front of them to be so fast, and their sharp claws paused in midair. In that instant, Baal's body dashed forward, passing through the gap between the 2 goblins that were pouncing at him, and brushing past the goblins. Shwa! The sharp dagger suddenly flashed out. Poo-Chi! The 2 goblins' necks were instantly lacerated, and blood spurted out. With a pang sound, they turned into ashes in midair and exploded. The entire process didn't take more than 5 seconds. Within 5 seconds, Baal had taken care of the 2 goblins that he had fought a few days ago in one fell swoop. This result made Noah raise his eyebrows. Although Baal was still a complete newbie in terms of ability points, in terms of combat skills, he had a certain standard. With Baal's equipment and level 3 weapon, as long as he didn't go to level 7 and below, he should be able to survive, right? According to the guild's records, if a newbie adventurer went to level 4 and below within a month of becoming an adventurer, the survival rate was only 10%. In other words, if a newbie adventurer went to level 4 and below, out of 10 of them, there was only 1 chance of survival. One could imagine how fast Baal's combat skills had improved. Noah couldn't find fault with Baal being able to improve to such a level in a few days. Then there's no problem, Noah said in a relaxed tone. As long as you don't go to level 7 and below, you should have the ability to survive, right? Is that so? Baal, who had returned from collecting magic stones, said with anticipation. Then, leader, can you bring me down? You really want to go to the lower levels? Noah didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Even if you want to have a chance encounter, what kind of chance encounter can there be in the lower levels of the dungeon? There's no such thing, Baal argued. The more dangerous the place, the more likely it is to meet a beautiful princess who is waiting for the hero to save her. For example, a castle guarded by a demon king, a forest occupied by a witch, and so on. That's what the books say. Noah didn't even have the strength to complain. He knew that it was only written in books, so why would he believe it? Furthermore, Baal had read storybooks, right? Even if the more dangerous the place, the more beautiful it is, you still have to have the ability to go in, Noah said unhappily. With your current ability, you want to go into a demon king's castle or a witch's forest? Are you looking for death? Baal suddenly became listless and whimpered. It would be great if I had my own magic. Magic was equivalent to a sure-kill skill. This was the understanding of everyone in this world. Just like Noah in the past, once he had the crushing magic, his strength had leaped to another level. If Baal had magic, then he would have no problem going to level 10, right? Do you really want to go to the lower levels that much? Noah rubbed his temples and laughed bitterly. Forget it, if you really want to go to the lower levels, I'll bring you there. Baal suddenly raised his head, his face full of surprise. Really? Leader. What do you think? Noah glanced at Baal and walked forward. In order to prevent you from going down alone and ending up in the stomach of a monster, it seems that I need to show you the difference between you and the monsters on the lower floors. After saying this, Noah turned his head and smiled at Baal. That smile made Baal's hair stand on end. Then, Baal heard Noah's words. Let's be clear, unless you're about to die, I won't do anything. Baal's face suddenly twitched violently, the anticipation and surprise on his face turned into the usual nervousness and fear. He braced himself and followed behind Noah. Just like this, under Noah's lead, Baal passed through level 5, passed through a flight of stairs on level 6, and arrived at level 7. The air on level 7 was filled with an atmosphere that made one's hair stand on end. When he arrived here, Baal was more or less regretful, and spoke nervously. Leader, I think we should go back. Didn't you want to go down? Noah said with a half-smile. I wanted to bring you to level 17 to see the floor master. Floor master? Baal took a deep breath and shook his head desperately. No. There's no need. Let's go back. After saying this, Baal immediately wanted to run back. However, at this time, Noah's pupils constricted, and he grabbed Baal's shoulder. Woo 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 woo. In the next second, a violent roar filled the entire space, drilling into Noah and Baal's ears. Baal was completely frozen on the spot. Noah, on the other hand, saw it clearly. He saw it, at the end of the tunnel, a monster with the head of a cow and the body of a human. It was more than 2 meters tall, with strong muscles, sharp horns, and blood-red eyes, and it was madly charging towards them with heavy footsteps. This monster was very similar to the monster Noah massacred on level 37. Minotaur? Chapter 871. Ooh 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 ooh. The Minotaur, a monster with a minotaur's head and a human body, charged toward Noah and Baal like a chariot. Its heavy footsteps even caused the ground to tremble slightly, and the air was suddenly filled with a terrifying atmosphere. Seeing the Minotaur, which was of a completely different level from him, rushing toward him with an astonishing momentum, Baal was completely stunned on the spot. His body trembled, but he could not move. That was natural. In terms of classification, the Minotaur was a LV2 monster. Monsters of this level generally only appeared in the middle level, and it was rather deep in the middle level. According to the threat assessment made by the guild based on the monsters on each floor of the dungeon, the Minotaur was recognized as the most threatening monster in the middle level. In terms of strength, the Minotaur was the strongest in the middle level, except for Goliath, the floor owner. Baal was only a LV1 monster. He was a novice adventurer at LV1. Even facing the monsters on the 7th floor was dangerous, let alone facing the strongest monster on the 24th floor and above, except for the floor owners. Therefore, in the face of the deadly monster that was rushing toward him, Bale's mind was completely blank, and he did not know what to do. Fortunately, Bale was not the only one here. Next to Bale, there was a deep area that had been explored many levels deeper than the middle level. That level was just a small matter, but if they were serious, even the gods could not ignore its existence. ALV-2 Minotaur. The strongest monster except for Goliath? For Noah, who could easily defeat Goliath when he was at LV-1, now that he had reached LV-2, there was an insurmountable barrier between him and the Minotaur. Clang! In the space around the Minotaur that was rushing toward them, a golden light rose, and golden ripples fluctuated and covered the surroundings of the Minotaur. Immediately afterwards, silver chains with sharp spikes at the front ends shot out from the golden ripples like pythons. In a flash, they coiled around the Minotaur's body and wrapped around its limbs. Paw! The Minotaur, who was rushing forward, was directly pulled back by the chains tightly wrapped around its body and limbs, and hung in the air. Ooh 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 ooh. Amidst the berserk roar, the monster named Minotaurus began to struggle, causing the chains that tightly bound its body to emit crisp sounds. Unfortunately, no matter how strong the Minotaurus was, his muscles bulged as he struggled frantically, but he still couldn't break free from the silver chains. Heaven's Lock, Enkidu. For enemies with divinity, it was a treasure that was like a natural enemy. For the Minotaur that did not have divinity, the true power of the treasure called Enkidu could not be exerted. However, even so, the heavenly lock was still a noble relic. Even if it was used to deal with an opponent without divinity, it was still much stronger than a normal chain. It would not be so easy for a LV-2 monster to break it. Looking at the Minotaur that was constantly roaring and struggling, Noah frowned. Why did the Minotaur come here? It was not that monsters could not cross floors and leave their own territory. However, that usually only happened between 2 or 3 adjacent floors. The Minotaur was a monster that was born on floors above the 15th floor. There were 8 floors to cross from the 7th floor. This was a bit abnormal. Leader. Leader. Bell came back to his senses and grabbed Noah's shoulder, shouting in horror. It's the Minotaur. It's the Minotaur. I have eyes, so I saw it clearly, Noah said helplessly. However, your eyes are not very good. Bell, I've already caught it. What are you still afraid of? Caught. Caught it? Bell was stunned. He looked at the struggling Minotaur timidly, but there was no lack of surprise in his tone. Was that done by you, leader? If it wasn't me, who else could it be? Noah did not have time to pay attention to Bell. Ignoring the timid Bell, he walked forward and came in front of the Minotaur. Looking at Noah, who was less than 2 meters away from it, the Minotaur struggled. Its red eyes stared at Noah, and white smoke was coming out of its nostrils. It roared at Noah again and again. However, there was a faint hint of fear in its roar. Obviously, even though the Minotaur only had the intelligence of a wild beast, it still understood. The human in front of it, who was much shorter and thinner than it, was definitely not someone it could touch. It also understood how dangerous this human was. In the face of the Minotaur's fearful roar, Noah's expression did not change. He just stared at it. Why did you cross so many floors to come here? The Minotaur, who could not speak, naturally would not answer this question. However, this question did not bother Noah for long. In the next moment, the person who could give Noah the answer appeared. Duh, 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 duh. Accompanied by a series of hurried footsteps, 2 figures rushed out from the end of the passage where the Minotaur had just appeared. They were imprinted in Noah's eyes. Noah turned his head and looked over. When he saw the 2 figures, he was stunned. One of them was a beautiful girl with elegant blonde hair, while the other was an orc youth with a lightning-shaped tattoo on his face. They were Ace and Bert, who had followed Loki's family on an expedition to the underground city more than a month ago. Noah exclaimed in shock. Why are you guys here again? Ace did not expect to see Noah here, and a hint of astonishment appeared on her face. Bert was even speechless. "You little brat, why are you here?" Since witnessing Noah's strength more than a month ago, Bert had not found fault with Noah. He did not even face Noah on the 18th floor, as though he was planning to disappear from Noah's sight. After reaching the 18th floor, Noah had not seen Bert face to face. However, now it seemed that Bert had only stopped finding fault with Noah. It did not mean that he was not hostile to him. At the very least, this werewolf definitely did not have a good impression of Noah. As for Aic, after seeing Noah, her tense expression gradually relaxed. She shifted her gaze to the Minotaur who was tightly bound by Noah's noble artifact. She placed her hand on the hilt of the sword at her waist and pulled it out. Aic's expression changed slightly. Aic's expression changed slightly. At this moment, there were two scabbards at A's waist. One of them contained A's original weapon. The other one contained the sword in the stone. A's had pulled out the sword in the stone. Holding the dazzling sword of the king, A's walked step by step toward the Minotaur. The Minotaur seemed to have sensed the fatal danger and struggled even more frantically. However, no matter how frantically the Minotaur struggled, it was still unable to break free from the sturdy chains. Poochie! Without any suspense, the sword in the stone pierced through the Minotaur's heart. The Minotaur's roar came to an abrupt end. Pung! The sturdy body suddenly turned into a cloud of dust and disappeared. Seeing that Ace did not hesitate to kill the Minotaur, Noah understood. It seemed that the Minotaur had come to the 7th level because of the adventures of Loki's family. As expected, nothing good happens every time I meet you. Noah's furrowed brows relaxed and he smacked his lips. No, it's better to leave first. After saying that, Noah wanted to call Baal. However, when he saw Baal's current appearance, he was stunned. This was because at this moment, Baal's face was smeared with red. He stared blankly at Ace and murmured as if he was in a dream. "It's really a chance encounter." The corner of Noah's mouth twitched. He really wanted to beat this guy up. Chapter 872. Perhaps it was because of the sudden appearance of the LV-2 Minotaurus on this floor. The monsters that were supposed to be on this floor seemed to have been driven away, causing the air to be filled with an indescribable silence. Wang! The silver chains that bound the Minotaurus slowly turned into light particles and dissipated into the air along with the golden ripples that were contracting in the air. Aic turned around and looked at Noah after the golden ripples and silver chains had completely disappeared. Her usually expressionless face showed some hesitation, but she still asked Noah with trepidation. "Are you guys alright?" The one who answered Aic's question wasn't Noah, but the displeased Bert. Even Goliath was killed. If this kid were to die in the hands of a Minotaurus, it would be a joke. As he said that, Bert glanced at Baal, who was standing beside Noah and looking at Abe in a daze. Baal's face was flushed red, and he looked a little embarrassed. Of course, the white-haired kid over there is another matter. If not for him, he would have died in the hands of the Minotaurus and been eaten clean. Baal came back to his senses and recalled the ferocious monster that was roaring at the sky. Now, he felt some lingering fear. Indeed. If Noah had not been there, Baal, a novice adventurer, would definitely have been gnawed to the bone. Unless he escaped. Originally, Baal was still looking forward to the dungeon and hoped to find a chance encounter there. Now, Baal, who was naive, finally understood what kind of place he was in and what kind of dream he was having. The thought of what would happen to him if Noah wasn't around made Baal, who had a timid personality, turn pale. What's the matter with that Minotaurus? Noah ignored Bert's harsh tone and looked directly at Aic. The Minotaurus that crossed so many floors to reach the 7th floor must have something to do with you, right? Sorry. Aic lowered her head slightly like a child who was about to be scolded by her parents. Her pretty face was filled with dejection. We encountered a group of Minotaurus on our way back from the expedition. We were halfway through the battle when the Minotaurus fled. With just this sentence, Noah understood more than half of the situation. I see. So that's why a Minotaurus ran to the 7th floor without a reason. You Loki clan really know how to make trouble for people. AIC lowered her head even more, and even Bert seemed to be choking and unable to speak. The Minotaurus's escape. Minotaurus and fled to another floor? This wasn't to be joked. There were other adventurers in the dungeon. However, not all adventurers were as powerful as Noah, AIC, and Bert. For an adventurer like Bale, whose strength was not on par with the Minotaurus, it would be a nightmare if he encountered a large group of Minotaurus. If many adventurers were unable to return because of the Iraqi clan, then presumably, the clan of the guild and other factions would definitely not sit back and do nothing, right? If not for Noah, Bale might have really died in the hands of the Minotaurus. It was no wonder AIC and Bert had chased after him in such a hurry. I'm sorry. AIC apologized again, her voice filled with dejection. Coupled with her pitiful face, even Noah couldn't bear to see her like this. If even Noah was like this, what more Bale? That. Bale blushed and said shyly. Please. Please raise your head. Seeing Bale's love-struck expression, Noah couldn't bear to look at him. It couldn't be helped. It was too embarrassing. Though he knew that Bale had a dream of finding a chance encounter in the dungeon, he didn't expect him to treat his encounter with AIC as a chance encounter. What happened to saving the princess in the Devil King's castle? What happened to saving a beauty in the witch's forest? There wasn't a hero saving the damsel in distress scenario, yet he treated this as a chance encounter. Noah was speechless. Forget it. Since a large group of Minotaurus rushed into the dungeon, it's probably not suitable for combat training. Let's call it a day. Noah sighed faintly. I hope you can deal with the aftermath properly. It's best not to let any victims appear. AIC nodded repeatedly, causing Bert to snort and turn his head away. Then, Noah turned around and saw Bale, who was shyly looking at AIC. His eyelids twitched. Bale, it seems like you can't bear to leave this place. I won't force you. I hope you won't encounter a second Minotaurus. After saying that, Noah walked toward the entrance to the 6th floor without looking back. Bale was shocked. He didn't hesitate and quickly chased after Noah. Leader. Wait for me. After a while, Noah and Bale disappeared from AIC's and Bert's sight. TSK, Bert smacked his lips. He actually has the time to care about such a small fry. How carefree. After saying that, Bert turned around and walked in another direction. Hey, AIC, don't dilly-dally there. There are other Minotaurus waiting for us to deal with. AIC nodded her head in silence. However, she kept looking forward, tightly gripping the dazzling sword in the stone in her hand. After a long time, she turned around and walked in the other direction. Leader. Leader. Bale shouted excitedly as soon as he walked out of the Tower of Babel and arrived at the central square. Look. We can really find a chance encounter in the buried city. You really can't learn your lesson. Noah sighed as he walked forward. Don't tell me you still want to go to the lower floors? Do you really want to meet a monster like the Minotaurus again? The excitement on Bale's face froze, and his excitement died down. That's true, I don't object to you continuing to have such thoughts, but, Belle, you'd better figure out what you're capable of, Noah said bluntly. Even if you want to go to the lower floors, you have to wait until you have the corresponding strength. Otherwise, even if you meet a level 1 adventurer like Ace Wallenstein who has the strength of LV5, do you have the courage to go up and pursue her? As Noah's realistic words came out, Bale's mood became more and more depressed. In the end, he almost burst into tears. I know you're looking forward to those stories where the hero saves the damsel in distress, and I've never thought of denying it. However, I don't agree with you biting off more than you can chew. Noah glanced at Bale. After all, the hero saves the damsel in distress, but you haven't become a hero yet. After that, Noah did not say anything else. Only Bale was left, his head lowered as he fell into deep thought and self-reflection. On this day, Noah and Baal did not hide in the buried city all day long. Instead, they spent a leisurely day. The next day, when Noah was still asleep, he heard a sorrowful cry, which woke him up in fright. He bounced up from the bed abruptly. "This is Baal's voice?" Noah hurriedly got up and opened the door in a flurry. Bang! Almost at the same time, the door to the room on the right side of Noah was also forcefully opened. Hestia also rushed out of the room with an anxious look on her face. Her hair was loose, and she didn't tie up her waist-length hair. "What's wrong? What's going on?" Apparently, Hestia was also startled awake. Then, Noah and Hestia saw the situation in the hall clearly. Baal, who was in casual clothes, was hiding in the corner and looking in the direction of the door with a red face. There were two girls there. One of them had tied her red hair into a ponytail. The other had long, flowing blonde hair. Hestia exclaimed in surprise. "Loki?" Noah was also stunned. "AIC Wallenstein?" It was Loki and AIC. Chapter 873. In the hall, Hestia and Loki were sitting face to face, separated by a table. At this time, the two goddesses were staring at each other fiercely, as if they wanted to swallow each other alive. They seemed to have a deep hatred for each other. Behind Hestia and Loki, Baal and AIC stood respectively. AIC was expressionless as usual, but she seemed to be interested in this house. She was secretly looking left and right, curiously sizing up the surroundings. Baal was also secretly sizing up the area in front of him. To be more precise, he was secretly looking at AIC. His face was red, and he was bashful, just like a typical innocent young man. Noah was the only one who sat next to Hestia and Loki, who were glaring at each other fiercely. He rested his chin on his hand and looked at Hestia and Loki for a while. After a long time, he spoke as if he was tired of it. After a while, he finally said, "How long are you going to keep this up?" "Of course." Hestia answered without hesitation. "After this airport leaves, of course." "Who are you calling an airport?" Loki almost exploded. "You are a poor dwarf who can't even afford a glass of wine. How dare you laugh at me? I'm not a poor dwarf." Hestia raised her head and puffed out her chest proudly. "I've been reborn a long time ago. My Noah is good at making money. Even your base camp is such a shabby little house. How dare you say that you've been reborn?" Loki raised his chin with an arrogant look. "My family tribe is more than enough to house 1,000 people. If I want, I can live on the top floor of the Tower of Babel at any time. A poor dwarf like you won't be able to live there for the rest of your life. It's only a matter of time." Hestia was not affected by Loki's words at all. She was still holding her head high. With my Noah's ability, he could deal with Warren even before receiving the favor. When he becomes a level 1 adventurer like LV5 or even LV6, even Eulalie's ultimate weapon won't be able to do anything to my Noah. At that time, I can live in a base camp that can accommodate 1,000 people or on the top floor of the Tower of Babel. Huh. Don't make me laugh. Rocky was not to be outdone. Do you think that LV5 or even LV6 is something that can be easily promoted? I say, Loki, you're still a god, right? Hestia mocked back. Do you really think that my Noah can't reach LV5 or LV6? If you really think so, then do I have to question your judgment as a god? Loki's face began to twist. However, Hestia was right. As long as one knew Noah's ability, no matter who it was, no one would doubt that Noah could reach LV5 or even LV6. What was needed to level up was a great achievement, and even the gods had to praise it. Noah was able to force A's, who was at LV5, to retreat before receiving that favor. In terms of great achievements, it was amazing enough. With such strength, Noah had no difficulty in challenging high-level opponents when he was at a low level. He could also continue to build such a great achievement as defeating high-level opponents at a low level. At that time, the EXP obtained would definitely be the highest level. If it was used to level up, it would be more than enough to reach LV5 or even LV6. After all, before receiving the grace, Noah was already able to force Aeth, who could be said to be the strongest existence in LV5, to retreat. After receiving the grace, it was impossible for him to not be able to do it, right? Then, before reaching LV5, Noah could always obtain such a great achievement as defeating high-level opponents at a low level. Reaching LV5 was only a matter of time. It was almost certain that he would reach LV6. As a god, it was impossible for Loki not to understand this. Loki just didn't want Hestia to be too proud. "You poor little dwarf." With a twitching face, Loki said hatefully. "It's just good luck to dig up a treasure, it should have been mine." At this time, Loki was really regretting it. As soon as the expeditionary force led by Finn returned to Eulalia, Loki learned about Noah's deeds in the underground city from a group of children. He could easily kill the floor master equivalent to LV4. Even the elves didn't resist the pure heart. A magic sword that will never be worn out. An independent space that can store items. The incredible deeds made Rocky's heart feel like it was being scratched by a cat. He felt excited, interesting, and at the same time, deeply regretful. Why couldn't he dig up Noah at that time? Undoubtedly, Loki was the first person Noah discovered after he came to Eulalia, wasn't he? As a result, such a treasure was taken away by someone else, and it was taken away by Hestia, who had always been against him. Loki really wanted to hit the wall. This kind of mood made Loki unwillingly question Noah, who was beside him with a look of annoyance. "Why did you choose this poor little dwarf? Where can I not compare with this poor little dwarf?" Hearing this, Noah glanced at Loki and said such a sentence with a smile. "Her figure is better than yours." At this moment, everyone present seemed to have heard a kapuchi sound, as if a sharp weapon had pierced through someone's body. Of course, there was no such sound. As for why, Noah's words were like an arrow that pierced Loki's heart. It was absolutely impossible to hear such a sound. It was such a sentence that made Loki, who had been arrogant until now, seem to have suffered a heavy blow. He lowered his head, and his whole body was surrounded by an atmosphere that was more sorrowful than the death of his heart. Ha 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 ha. Hestia, on the other hand, laughed proudly. She even puffed out her chest and deliberately emphasized her unscientific upper body. Even Aeth frowned and couldn't help but put her hand on her chest. Bale, who had been secretly looking at Aeth, instantly blushed and almost spat out steam. "Okay, stop fooling around." Noah sighed and went straight to the point. "Tell us, why did you come to find us?" Everyone in Eulalia knew that Hestia and Loki didn't get along well. Since that was the case, and Loki had personally come to this house, which was equivalent to Hestia's headquarters, he couldn't have come just to quarrel with Hestia, right? Truth be told, Loki didn't want to come here. The person who wanted to come here was Aeth. Aeth, who was standing behind Loki, silently took out the sword in the stone that was in a scabbard from her waist. She walked up to Noah and looked at him. She held the sword in the stone in its scabbard and handed it to Noah. "I'm here to fulfill my promise." More than a month ago, Noah had lent the sword in the stone to Aeth on the 18th floor of the underground city. At that time, Noah said that Aeth would give him an answer after she experienced the power of the sword in the stone. In the end, did Aeth want to become stronger or did she want power? Aeth was undoubtedly here to answer this question. "This sword is really very powerful," Aeth said sincerely. She also said something shocking. "With it, I defeated the floor master of the 37th floor." Aeth's words caused Bale and Hestia to suck in a breath of cold air. Defeated the floor master of the 37th floor? Even Noah was slightly surprised, let alone Bale and Hestia. The 37th floor. Noah had been there more than once. He was very clear about the level of monsters on that floor. On the 37th floor, there were not only LV3 monsters but also LV4 monsters. The level of the floor master was 2 levels above the level of the monsters on that floor. Generally speaking, the 2 levels were added to the monsters on that floor with the highest level. In other words, the level of the floor master of the 37th floor was 2 levels above LV4. Thus, the level of the floor master of the 37th floor was obvious. LV6. 8th had defeated the LV6 floor master. Chapter 874. Originally, in this world, the gap between levels was not so easy to fill. To put it bluntly, 10 LV1s could not defeat a LV2s, not to mention the gap between levels. And the 10 LV1s here were all LV1s who had reached the level of AB stage in all aspects, while the LV2s had just started to level up and their basic abilities were reset to 0. One could only imagine how big the gap between the levels was. So, when Noah forced Ave to retreat without receiving the favor, even Loki was shocked. Bert kept saying that he couldn't accept it, and even Finn tried to test it, because of this. So, how big was the gap between LV5 and LV6? If one were to describe it in one sentence, then even if it wasn't the difference between heaven and earth, and it wasn't to the point of making one feel despair, it was still very shocking. Not to mention, if this LV6 was a floor master with amazing ability, then it was even more amazing. Just like Goliath, although his level was only LV4, but his strength and durability were enough to match LV5 or even LV6, the 37th floor master must have exceeded the scope of LV6 in some places. Therefore, generally speaking, within the same level, it was impossible for an adventurer to defeat a floor master alone, let alone challenge a higher level. However, Aeth did it. With the level of LV5, she challenged a LV6 floor master and won. This great achievement was definitely enough to let Aeth rise to LV6. That's right. Loki seemed to have found a chance to fight back. He jumped up and laughed at Hestia. Just yesterday, Aeth's level rose, and now it is a veritable LV6. LV6. Hestia was speechless as if she had swallowed a fly. Baal looked at Aeth blankly, as if he finally understood the gap between Aeth and himself. He no longer hesitated, but lowered his head, and his expression became uncertain. Only Noah looked straight at Aeth, who was holding the sword in the stone, and asked, "You have released the true name of the sword in the stone?" AIC nodded. In other words, during the battle with the owner of the 37th floor, AIC had used the golden sword of victory, Caliban, relic. With the help of a relic that was at least grade A, she was able to kill the owner of the LV6 floor. It was precisely because she had experienced the true power of the sword in the stone that AIC could say those words. This magic sword really won't wear out, and it won't even have any wear and tear. Thanks to it, I was able to defeat the floor master of the 37th floor without much damage and rise to LV6. AIC gently stroked the sword in the stone that had accompanied her for more than a month. However, Riveria said that although this magic sword won't wear out, it requires a lot of mental energy. I've only used it once, and that time, I almost fainted. In this world, when using magic, one's mental strength had to be converted into mana in order to successfully use magic. And releasing the true name of the relic would undoubtedly consume an excessive amount of mana. AIC didn't have the same mana as Noah and the heroic spirits and magicians in the world of Type Moon. Therefore, when using the relic, the mana consumed would become the kind of mana that was converted from mental strength in this world. Naturally, if one used it excessively and consumed too much mental strength, they would fall into a state similar to coma. This was also the reason why people in this world needed to be cautious when using magic. However, since AIC had borrowed the power of the golden sword of victory, Caliban, it was not impossible to defeat the LV6 floor owner. Originally, the relic was a trump card that was more like a trump card than the magic of this world. Even the heroic spirits relied on it, let alone AIC. In other words, you are very satisfied with the power of the sword in the stone, right? Noah didn't take the sword in the stone, but looked directly at AIC. Haven't you thought of monopolizing this power? Rocky was the first to frown when he heard this. Kid, what do you mean? Noah just smiled and didn't speak. He didn't even look at Loki. He just stared at AIC as if he wanted to see through her heart. AIC slightly tightened the grip of the sword in the stone and fell into silence. Seeing this, Noah curled his lips and smiled. That's right, you actually want this kind of power. You don't want to become stronger, you just want to obtain power. The whole place suddenly became silent. This time, even Loki didn't choose to speak and remained silent. On the contrary, AIC slowly relaxed her grip on the sword in the stone. After a while, she spoke frankly. I do want power, not just to become stronger. Then, the sword in the stone should be able to give you the power you want, right? Noah seemed to be guiding something as he smiled at AIC. Don't you want to get the sword in the stone? I do. This time, AIC answered without any hesitation. However, this is not mine. Noah did not say anything that sounded like an interrogation. Instead, he looked at AIC's clear eyes. AIC did not turn her gaze away. She met Noah's gaze and stared back at him. After a while, Noah suddenly smiled. You will become stronger, I guarantee it. AIC blinked her eyes and asked innocently. Really? Of course, Noah said. I can sense that you have an unparalleled thirst for power, but you haven't lost yourself because of it. You might force yourself and whip yourself endlessly in order to obtain power, but you won't sacrifice the important things around you or even in your heart in order to obtain power. Therefore, you will be very tired, you will fall, you will collapse because of excessive effort, but there will never be a time when you will feel regret or guilt. This way, you will definitely be able to become stronger. After saying that, Noah extended his hand to take the sword in the stone from AIC's hand. Then, Noah said, Are you interested in AIC? Are you interested in trying another way to improve yourself that doesn't rely on God's grace? AIC's eyes flashed, and the light in them gradually brightened. Wait! Hestia hurriedly called out. Noah, what are you planning to do? That's right, that's right. Loki also shouted. What are you planning to do to my AIC? I say, what are you guys so nervous about? Noah rolled his eyes. I just want to teach her something. It's not like I want to eat her. Is there a need to be so nervous? Why do you want to teach this Warren? Hestia said with dissatisfaction. You can teach Baal too. Bel? Noah glanced at Bel, whose face was full of anticipation, and laughed. It's still too early for him. Baal's head drooped in disappointment. I don't agree. Loki continued to shout. Although I'm interested in the other way to improve myself without relying on the grace of God, I don't need the grace of the poor shorty. I'm not teaching you, Noah asked strangely. Why would it become a grace for you? AIC is my baby. Loki said. If you give her grace, you are giving me grace. Noah was speechless. Loki, I also want to ask you, AIC couldn't help but speak up and said very sincerely to Loki. I really want to become stronger. Then why don't you use the grace I gave you to become stronger? Loki's narrowed eyes opened a little, revealing a pair of shrewd eyes. You have now risen to LV6 and are much stronger than before. You can continue to become stronger in the future. There is no need to use other methods to force yourself. Can't you use your own way to become stronger? Don't you believe in the grace I gave you? It's not like that, AIC said weakly. I just want to become stronger. Loki didn't know what to say. Under such circumstances, Noah smiled bitterly. Anyway, you are not in a hurry. Think about it carefully. AIC hesitated for a moment and could only nod. Hestia and Loki looked at each other, snorted, and turned their heads away. Noah was helpless. Why do I feel like I can't get any benefits? Chapter 875. While Loki and Ace were on their way to visit Noah, Hesti, and Baal's base camp, Freya was in a room on the top floor of the towering Tower of Babel in the center of Orly. Freya had noticed what was happening almost immediately. The silver-haired goddess was standing in front of a glass window that was as magnificent as a wall. She was holding a glass of wine in her hand as she swirled the blood-red wine. Her lips curled into a smile, and her charming eyes curved into a crescent moon shape. The radiance of the swordswoman beside Loki has become even more dazzling. She must have leveled up to LV6, right? Freya's eyes could see through the souls of the people in the lower realm. Even though she could not see their ability value, she could roughly judge their level based on the strength and color of their souls. That was why Freya could tell that Ace had leveled up with just a glance. It's a pity that even though the swordswoman's radiance is very dazzling, she is still a far cry from him. Freya squinted her eyes with a smile as she conversed with the burly orc who stood in the corner of the room like a pillar. He stood there motionless like a statue, guarding Freya all the time. Otto, you think so too, don't you? Hearing Freya's words, the burly orc who was called Otto remained in his upright position as he stared at his most revered goddess. He was silent for a while before he spat out a steely and powerful voice. I can't see through everything about others like my lord, so naturally, I can't make a positive answer. But last time, if a LV6 and 4 LV5s on our side couldn't deal with him, then it's natural that the glory of swordswoman, who had just reached LV6, can't compare with him. When he said this, the orc's tone did not change at all. It was as if the LV6 was not even worth mentioning in Otto's eyes. But if it was someone who had heard of the name Otto, they would not think that there was a problem. If there was a reason, it would be that although it was not to the extent that it was not worth mentioning, the orc named Otto did indeed have the qualifications to look down on a LV6. That's true. Freya glanced at the orc and said with a faint smile. Since even you, the only one who broke through LV6 and reached LV7, known as Eulalie's ultimate weapon, said so, then even I can't find any words to refute. The only LV7. Orly's ultimate weapon. Otto, the orc who was known as the strongest existence in Orly, lowered his head slightly and said without a trace of confusion. My meager strength is just a little bit of light to set off the beauty of the goddess. When she heard this, Freya slowly opened her half-closed eyes and turned her head to look at Otto with an interested smile on her face. I didn't expect that a pure martial artist like you would actually have a time when you would compliment me. Are you worried that I would give all my love to that child? Otto's expression did not change in the face of Freya's teasing and probing words. He only said this one sentence. I still believe that your love is equal to everyone. There is only uniqueness, and there is no superiority or inferiority. Otto said this sentence without the slightest hesitation. Obviously, this was the truest thought in Otto's heart. Even if your love is with someone else, your love for us will not disappear. Otto said calmly. I believe that. The room fell into an indescribable silence. Freya merely stared at Otto as she asked nonchalantly. Even if I am obsessed with that child and ignore all of you who worship me, is it still the same? Yes. Otto's answer was still without the slightest hesitation. In fact, in the past, you have fallen in love with many people, but you have never abandoned your love for us. The goddess of love and beauty, Freya. To put it bluntly, this goddess was simply a goddess who had been crowned with beauty, and had madly immersed herself in the thing called love. In the past, this goddess had more than once been obsessed with people with beautiful souls, and did not hesitate to use any means to bring them into her embrace. This included the strong orc named Otto, and even the members of Freya's family. Almost all of them had accepted Freya's love. The love of the goddess named Freya was very noble. Because only those with extremely pure and dazzling souls could receive Freya's love. The love of the goddess named Freya was also very cheap. Because as long as the soul was extremely pure and dazzling, the goddess would take a fancy to anyone, no matter who it was, they would receive Freya's love. Therefore, the love of the goddess of beauty Freya was both noble and cheap. Moreover, Freya had never kept her chastity. To put it bluntly, Freya's promiscuity was a fact that had long been known in the world of gods. But Otto, who was obsessed with this goddess, treated this as equality, as universal love. In fact, it was a little unflattering. But it had to be said that from this perspective, it could be said that Freya's love had never disappeared. No matter how many people she had doted on. Otto believed this firmly. However, in the next moment, Freya turned her head and looked outside the glass window. She looked at the place that was as dazzling as the sun, and said these words. "Unfortunately, Otto, this time, you will be disappointed." Otto's expression did not change, but he looked up. Under Otto's gaze, Freya placed one hand on the glass window. Her beautiful face slowly turned red, as if she was obsessed, and said these words. "That's a brilliance that I've never seen before. It's also a dazzling degree that I've never seen before. I'm sure that even when this world is destroyed, he's the only one who has such a soul. That's why I can go crazy for him. I don't even mind sacrificing my beauty, my love, my body, and my feelings." Freya turned her gaze to Otto. The smile on her face was beautiful and cruel. "Then it is needless to say about you all, do you understand?" Meeting Freya's gaze, Otto stared blankly at his most revered goddess. After a while, he lowered his head. "Yes, ha." Freya pursed her lips into a smile. Her face was still red, as if the conversation just now had aroused her inner possessiveness. She closed her eyes. "But at first, I wanted to observe this incredible child for a while before deciding how to dote on him. But now, Hestia has him, Loki seems to have taken a liking to him, and even the swordswoman is by his side. I can't wait any longer." After saying this, Freya's eyes turned. She suddenly thought of something and smiled. "Otto, tell the children to prepare for a banquet." "A banquet?" Otto was stunned, but the next second, he calmed down and lowered his head to obey the order. "Understood. May I ask who the guests are?" "As long as it is a god in Eulalia, including their children." Freya's smile grew brighter. "Also, you can leave out anyone's invitation, but not Hestia's. Do you understand?" "Yes." After a short reply, Otto walked out of Freya's room. In the quiet room, Freya once again gazed at the source of the dazzling light. She smiled as if she was drunk on it. "I'm looking forward to meeting you." The next day, when Noah came out of the room, Hestia was already sitting on the sofa, staring at an envelope on the table in front of her. Her brows were deeply furrowed, as if she was very distressed. Noah was surprised to see Hestia like this. Did Hestia also know how to make such an expression? Noah walked towards Hestia and asked curiously. "What's wrong? Why do you look so distressed?" "Noah?" Hestia raised her head and looked at Noah. The distress on her face didn't decrease but instead increased. This made Noah even more curious. What made Hestia so distressed? Chapter 876. Sitting on the sofa, Hestia crossed her arms as if she was emphasizing her impressive bosom. Her eyes were fixed on an envelope on the table in front of her. She seemed to be in distress. When Noah saw that Hestia didn't seem to have any intention of speaking, he turned to look at the envelope that Hestia was staring at and picked it up. "What's this?" "I haven't opened it yet," Hestia said. "But I guess it's an invitation." "An invitation?" Noah turned his eyes to Hestia. "What kind of invitation letter?" "An invitation from a god." Hestia sighed. "To be more precise, it's an invitation to a banquet held by a god." "A banquet of a god?" Noah was a little surprised. The so-called god's banquet, to put it bluntly, was a gathering held by the gods who descended from the heaven realm to the lower realm. The gods descended to the mortal world to relieve boredom, find excitement, and have entertainment that couldn't be found in the heavens. A banquet held by a god and invited other gods to have fun together was very common in Eulalia and even in the whole world. Simply put, a banquet was held by a god to relieve boredom and find entertainment. Therefore, there were almost no rules about which god would hold the banquet and which day it would be held. If a god was bored and wanted to hold a banquet, he would hold one. If a god wanted to participate in a banquet and find entertainment, he would attend. The capriciousness and freedom of the gods could be seen from this. Of course, after a god came to the mortal world, he couldn't even use his divine power and had to live like an ordinary person. Naturally, there would be restrictions on his life. For example, before Hestia met Noah, she didn't have a family tribe or work, so there were many gods who were called poor gods. Even if a family tribe was established, the power and strength of the family tribe were very different. Even if some gods wanted to hold a banquet, they didn't have the financial resources. Therefore, most of the gods who held banquets were powerful gods who wanted to show off their status more or less. Since Hestia had received an invitation, it meant that another god was going to hold a banquet. In other words, you just received an invitation to attend the banquet, right? Noah felt a little strange. It's just a banquet. Is there a need to be so distressed? Indeed, the banquets of the gods are held every once in a while. I have received many invitations, so there's nothing strange about this. Hestia reached out her hand and took the envelope from Noah's hand, looking at him with a serious expression. What's strange is that the clan hosting the banquet is Freya's clan. Noah's eyes slightly blinked when he heard the word clan from Hestia's mouth. Freya's family. One of the two most powerful clans in Eulalie's clan. Together with the Loki clan, they were known as the two kings of Olalai. The main god of the clan is not an ordinary god, but a beautiful one, Hestia explained. She has the ability to charm people regardless of gender, race, and even gods can be charmed without exception. She is the embodiment of beauty. That is the beauty goddess. I know that, Noah scratched his cheek. But, what's so special about the banquet hosted by the beauty goddess? It's not that it's special, Hestia crossed her arms again, a little distressed. It's just that Freya usually stays at the top of Babel and never shows herself in front of the crowd. I'm just wondering why such a god would suddenly hold such a banquet. That's it? Noah said helplessly. There's nothing to worry about, right? Maybe it's just a whim. Maybe. Hestia frowned. But, I don't have a good impression of Freya. What's wrong? Noah asked in confusion. Do you have a bad relationship with her? Rather than a bad relationship, it's better to say that I'm afraid of her one-sidedly. Hestia pouted. Listen up, Noah, all beautiful gods are not to be trifled with. Just like the elves, they have the bad habit of treating other races as ugly existences. Beautiful gods who have worse looks than the elves also have more or less twisted parts, just to different degrees. To be honest, I really don't want to have anything to do with a goddess like Freya. Despite saying that, Hestia still opened the envelope in her hand and took out the invitation letter. After glancing at it, a trace of surprise appeared on her face. He could even bring along members of his clan to participate in it? What's going on? Even Noah was startled. Noah had heard that usually, members of the clan were not allowed to attend the banquets held by the gods. After all, it was a gathering of gods, and children were generally not allowed to attend. However, this time, the organizers seemed to have allowed the members of the clan tribe to participate. Even clan members are allowed to attend? Hestia threw the invitation letter in her hand on the table and said in a bored tone. It seems that this banquet will become a place for those people to show off their children. Seeing Hestia's lack of interest, Noah shook his head. Since you're so dissatisfied, why don't you just refuse? That's true. Hestia laid on the sofa like a child throwing a tantrum, constantly kicking her two white legs. But I've been looking forward to the next banquet, looking forward to it? Noah was confused. How did it become looking forward to it? Hestia turned her head away and puffed up her cheeks as if she was throwing a tantrum. Because I really want to wear the gown you bought for me to a banquet. Ever since Noah bought her a dress as a gift, Hestia had been looking forward to the banquet hosted by some god. That way, Hestia could wear the dress Noah gave her and show off in front of those gods who used to laugh at her for not being able to afford a dress. It must be known that after Hestia descended to the mortal world, she would be mercilessly teased by those gods who liked to join in the fun almost every time she attended a banquet. They would say that she was so poor that she couldn't even afford a dress. She was simply a poor god. Therefore, Hestia had been looking forward to the banquet. She wanted to wear the dress Noah gave her and show off to those gods who made fun of her. Noah also inadvertently heard that some gods had been laughing about Hestia in their clan, so he wanted to prepare a dress for Hestia. In that case, it doesn't matter if I attend the banquet once, right? Noah couldn't help but smile. The goddess you are afraid of is the organizer. You are definitely not the only god who will be invited. When the time comes, she will need to host the banquet and entertain so many guests. In addition, she is also a beautiful goddess who is admired by everyone. She will definitely have a lot of social activities. She may not necessarily have to deal with you. It doesn't matter if I attend the banquet once, right? Well, that's true. Hestia's expression became cheerful, and then she said to Noah with a smile. Well, Noah, you should also prepare a dress and attend the banquet with me. Me? Noah didn't expect that Hestia would lead the topic to him. I'm going too. Of course, Hestia said matter-of-factly. The higher-ups clearly said that we need to bring members of the family clan. Those gods who are invited will definitely bring the most outstanding children of the family clan to show off. When the time comes, if I don't bring members of the family clan, I will definitely be ridiculed for not having children who are presentable. Noah was a little uncertain. What about Baal? Baal is just a novice adventurer. If I bring him, I will only be made fun of. Hestia stood up from the sofa, put her hand on Noah's shoulder, and said earnestly. If you don't go with me, I will definitely be made fun of by those heartless gods. Noah smiled bitterly. How could he get involved in this? If he had known, he would have just asked Hestia to refuse. Chapter 877. Night fell in Orly, where there was never a lack of excitement. At a corner of Eulalie, in front of a luxurious palace, a group of well-dressed figures were chatting and laughing as they made their way towards the grand entrance. Some of these people were gods, some were humans, some were elves, some were dwarves, some were orcs, and some were even Amazons. They all wore formal clothes and looked very grand. Under such circumstances, a carriage slowly came to a stop in front of the palace. Immediately, Noah got off the carriage. Looking carefully, Noah was wearing a black tuxedo. The color of the tuxedo was deeper than the surrounding darkness. Together with Noah's dark hair and pupils, he looked like an existence born of the night. People couldn't help but sigh that there was such a deep color in the world. In addition, Noah himself had an extremely otherworldly temperament and an aura that made people feel calm. This caused many gods and people in the surroundings to look over and take a few extra glances at Noah. After getting off the carriage, Noah looked around, then turned around and reached inside the carriage. Not long after, a slender hand reached out of the carriage and put it on Noah's hand. She lifted the curtain and slowly got off the carriage. That person was none other than Hestia. If Hestia was said to be amiable and approachable, then today she was a real noble princess. A pure white dress tightly wrapped around Hestia's petite body, exposing her soft shoulders and white thighs. There were many decorations on the corners of the dress, like 100 folds of lace, giving people a sense of elegance. There were 2 long ribbons hanging down from her waist, like a big bow. Her waist-length hair, which was usually tied into 2 ponytails, was completely untied. It hung down like a waterfall, swaying back and forth in the dark night, giving people a dazzling feeling. As the saying goes, people need clothes, and Buddha needs gold. Although the so-called gods were all transcendent existences with extraordinary appearances, if they dressed like men all day long like Loki, then no matter how outstanding their appearance was, it would more or less be covered up. The same was true for Hestia. Although she usually looked cute from her childish appearance, after putting on the dress, she was not only cute, but also beautiful. Her amiable smile was very dazzling. I didn't expect that I would attend a banquet with a cute child one day. Perhaps it was because she had put on a formal dress, but she was in a very good mood. She even looked at Noah and praised him generously. Noah's dress is also very good. Even the gods can't find any fault with it. For a god like you to say that, there's no doubt about it. Noah smiled and praised him as well. You too, Hestia. You're very beautiful today. Is that so? Hestia smiled shyly. Sure enough, you still feel shy when praised by someone close to you. That proves that you have a lot of emotions. That's a good thing, unlike some gods with weird tempers. Not to mention praise, even compliments are taken for granted. They even think that they are infallible, right? Noah smiled. Then, let's go in. Okay. Hestia's childish face was filled with an extremely beautiful smile. She put one hand on Noah's arm and walked toward the luxurious palace gate in front of her like a dance partner. What appeared in front of Noah and Hestia was a very gorgeous and luxurious palace. After walking through the gate, a bright hall with gorgeous lights appeared in front of everyone. At the front of the hall was a very luxurious staircase covered with a red carpet. Noah and Hestia stepped on the long staircase. After walking for a while, they arrived at the banquet hall on the second floor. At this time, most of the invited gods and humans should have arrived. At least, when Noah and Hestia arrived, the luxurious banquet hall was almost full of people. Magic stone lamps hung from the high ceiling like crystal chandeliers. Many long tables were arranged in a row in the corners of the banquet hall. There were delicacies that could not be found anywhere else on the tables. There was a tall window at the front of the hall, and there was a balcony that looked like an outdoor cafe. Here, famous adventurers could be seen everywhere. Sure enough, they've brought the most outstanding children from the clan tribe over. Seeing this scene, Hestia sighed as if she had seen through the world of mortals. Then, she smiled at Noah. Fortunately, my Noah won't lose to anyone here. You're in a good mood today. You keep praising me. It makes me feel a little embarrassed, Noah said helplessly. Compared to that, I'm more curious. Is the headquarters of Freya's clan, one of the two most powerful clans in Eulalia, in this palace? Of course not. This facility is public property managed by the guild. It's only rented to clans or merchants who need it, Hestia said. For a banquet like this where a large number of gods are invited, no clan will directly hold it in their own base camp. Who knows when there will be a clan that will become the enemy's clan in the banquet? Noah nodded in understanding. However, at this moment, a sarcastic voice suddenly sounded. Even if you want to hold the banquet in your own headquarters, you need to have a headquarters that can hold the banquet. A poor dwarf like you can't even hold a banquet at home. Hearing this voice, Noah's helpless expression became even more intense. Hestia's face twitched, and the beautiful smile on her face collapsed as if she had met the god of plague. She narrowed her eyes and turned her head to look behind her. There, a beautiful woman in men's clothes was looking at Hestia from the corner of her eyes. Hestia was speechless when she saw the beautiful woman in men's clothes. Loki, it's you again? I should be the one saying that, little dwarf. Loki looked Hestia up and down and mocked her again. You're wearing a formal dress? You look like a child wearing an adult's clothes. You're so stupid. You're the one who's not qualified to talk about me. Hestia retorted, not to be outdone. You're wearing men's clothes? Is it because some parts of your body won't be able to hold up in a formal dress? An airport. Who are you calling an airport? Ah. Like firewood and kerosene, Hestia and Loki would explode as soon as they came into contact with each other. They began to fight each other. Here they go again. Noah was speechless. He could only put his hand on his forehead and sigh. Then he turned his eyes away. At this moment, Noah finally noticed something. There was another person behind Loki. She was dressed in a light green gown that exposed her slender shoulders. Her body was adorned with exquisite embroidery and decorations, and her arms were covered in long, silky gloves. Part of her long golden hair was tied up, and the rest of her hair fell behind her back. Below her waist, the gown that connected her upper body was spread open, and she looked like a princess who had walked out of the palace wearing a princess gown. That was naturally AIC. Perhaps it was because she was wearing a different outfit than usual, but AIC looked a little awkward. When she noticed Noah's gaze, the girl, who was usually expressionless and rarely showed any emotions, became very shy and even moved her body behind Loki. How should he put it? She was indescribably cute. At this moment, there was a sudden uproar. Tisk. Hestia and Loki, who were quarreling, stopped at the same time and smacked their lips. The troublesome guy finally came. This is the only time we feel the same way. Hearing Hestia and Loki's whispers, Noah looked at the source of the noise and looked at the innermost part of the banquet hall. There, he saw beauty. Chapter 878. At this moment, the entire banquet hall, which was originally bustling with noise, suddenly fell into a deathly silence as if all the noise had been cut off. In the banquet hall, everyone, be it gods or humans, looked in one direction and fell into a state of absent-mindedness. This was because an existence that seemed to carry the dazzling light of the world had appeared in front of everyone. Clack, 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 the sound of high heels hitting the ground echoed clearly in the silent banquet hall. Along with the clear sound of footsteps, a goddess with long silver hair that reached her waist appeared in front of everyone's eyes. She was a goddess with a beauty that even the gods could not compare to. She was wearing an extremely revealing gown, which perfectly displayed the beauty of her seductive and delectable body. The goddess who represented beauty was just walking there, but her every move seemed to be able to seduce people's hearts, causing them to fall into a dangerous situation where they would lose their minds and allow the most primitive impulse to control their bodies. At this moment, the goddess was undoubtedly the most dazzling and eye-catching existence in the hall. Under the goddess' radiance, the burly orc beside her, who would definitely be the first to attract people's attention, and whose entire body was filled with a terrifying sense of presence, had all the attention stolen away, causing people to subconsciously ignore him. Looking at the beautiful silver-haired goddess, Noah narrowed his eyes in the crowd. Is that the goddess of beauty, Freya? The goddess of beauty, Freya. Just like her divinity and divinity, this goddess represented beauty. The goddess of beauty was born with the ability to seize people's hearts and minds, and make them the captive of love. Even if she did not deliberately use her charm, the gods and humans around her still could not move their eyes away from Freya, and even blushed as if they were intoxicated, unable to recover from their daze. Although Noah was also looking at Freya, he was not captivated by her natural charm. That could be considered as a negative influence similar to curses, weakness, and poisoning, right? Thus, while many gods and humans were immersed in Freya's natural charm, Noah's heart was extremely calm and was not affected at all. However, others did not know that Noah was not affected at all. You can't look. Noah. Hestia screamed and threw herself in front of Noah. She raised her hands and waved them around in an attempt to stop Noah from looking at Freya. You can't look at the goddess like that. Otherwise, they would immediately become Freya's captive. You'll be charmed. Everyone in the banquet hall stared at Freya as she slowly walked into the hall, as if they were trying to prove that Hestia's words were true. They stood there in a daze, as if they had lost their souls. The same goes for you, Aston. Loki said to AIC, who was beside him, with an annoyed look. Although it's not as exaggerated as the males, you shouldn't keep staring at Freya. Otherwise, you'll be led by the nose by that love-struck fool. AIC nodded obediently and lowered her head, no longer looking at Freya. As for Noah, he helplessly stretched out his hand, grabbed Hestia's small hand that was constantly waving in front of him, and pressed it down. All right, I'm not affected by her charm. Really? Hestia stared at Noah's face. When she saw that Noah's expression was normal, she still shook her head worriedly. Just in case, you'd better not keep staring at Freya. Don't be tempted by that fickle goddess. Hearing this, Noah rolled his eyes. Just as he was about to say something, a burning gaze suddenly stopped on him. Noah's pupils constricted. Noah couldn't be more familiar with such a scorching gaze. Raising his head, Noah met the burning gaze. In the next moment, Noah's gaze met the owner of the burning gaze. Her silver eyes were fixed on Noah, and there was an unconcealable passion and intoxication in them. She was the goddess with a beautiful smile on her face. Looking at Freya's seductive smile and her burning gaze, Noah did not have the slightest emotion. Instead, he narrowed his eyes and sneered. Found you, just from this gaze, Noah could be sure. Freya was the one who had been staring at him with a scorching gaze that made his hair stand on end. Freya was the one who had ordered the LV-6 catmen and the 4 LV-5 dwarfs to attack him. And once Freya's gaze landed on Noah, it did not move away. Her beautiful face turned red at a speed visible to the naked eye. Freya had always thought that when she saw Noah, she would still be able to keep her cool. However, Freya, who saw the glory of the soul as her lifelong pursuit, and Noah, who always had a soul that made her crazy, lost all her calmness in an instant. There was only one thought left in her mind. Get him. No matter what, she had to get him. A crazy desire to possess him attacked Freya's heart. Freya, who had originally planned to give a speech in front of the gods as the organizer, could no longer care about anything else. She lifted her feet and walked in the direction of Noah. Behind Freya, the strong orc Otto seemed to have discovered Freya's intention. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but chose to swallow his words. He silently followed behind Freya, staring at Noah in front of him, and did not move his gaze away. Just like that, wherever Freya and Otto passed, the crowd would automatically disperse and make a path for them. Not long after, Freya, who was leading Otto, stopped in front of Noah and the rest. She looked at Noah with an infatuated expression. Loki, who noticed Freya's behavior, was speechless as if he had eaten something bad. I see. This time, you've taken a fancy to this little guy? You hopeless love-struck fool. Freya. Hestia also stared at Freya and shouted loudly. What do you want? Freya ignored Loki and Hestia. She didn't even care about Otto behind her. She only had Noah in her eyes. Her beautiful eyes flickered with an intoxicating light. Then, Freya smiled. In that instant, everyone who saw Freya's smile widened their eyes, and they were all stunned. Including Hestia, Loki, and Ace. Charm. Freya finally could not help but use her charm ability. She only had one goal. You are mine. Freya spoke fanatically like a fanatic. With an intoxicated expression, she reached out a hand to Noah, intending to caress his cheek. Come, follow me. Come to my side, and never leave me. The charm of the goddess of beauty enveloped everyone present in the most direct way. Those who were caught by this charm would all become captives who were madly in love with Freya. Fortunately, Freya's charm was not directed at the people around her. Otherwise, everyone here would have become Freya's toys. Freya actually used her charm ability in front of almost all of Eulalia's minions, and even affected everyone present. No matter how beautiful Freya was, she would be condemned after this, right? Freya could not possibly not understand this. However, Freya did not care about that anymore. With such a close proximity to the soul that made her crazy, Freya had completely lost herself. If Freya's charm was to make everyone her captive, then under the dazzling brilliance of Noah's unparalleled soul, Freya was the first to become his captive. So, Freya did not care about anything else. As long as she could have Noah, Freya felt that it was worth it, no matter what the consequences were. Unfortunately, Freya did not notice. Everyone present was captivated by Freya's charm ability. They were unable to control themselves and stood there in a daze, unable to do anything. Noah was the only one who didn't seem to be in a trance. There was only indifference. Chapter 879. Pa-dash. When all the gods and humans in the banquet hall were immersed in Freya's charm and were unable to extricate themselves, an extremely crisp sound suddenly rang out, jolting all the gods and humans out of their daze. However, When everyone woke up from their daze and saw the source of the crisp sound, everyone, be it god or human, was stunned. Freya, who had a dazzling smile on her face and was about to reach out to touch Noah's cheek, was stunned. They were completely dumbfounded. Because the crisp sound was caused by Noah waving his hand and slapping away Freya's hand that was reaching for his cheek. The charm of a beautiful goddess was rejected. That was why Freya was stunned, and so was everyone else. The entire banquet hall fell into a dead silence. Under such circumstances, Noah, who was looking at Freya's frozen beautiful smile, suddenly chuckled and said in an indifferent tone, "I'm sorry, I don't want to be touched by people who use despicable means, even if they are gods." That one sentence turned the deathly silent atmosphere in the banquet hall into a downright heavy atmosphere. Freya just stared blankly at Noah and muttered almost subconsciously, Why wasn't I charmed by you?" Noah shook his head with a smile, but there was no smile in his eyes when he looked at Freya. "Because I haven't fallen to the point where I can be captured by such despicable means." When this sentence fell from Noah's mouth, Noah's expression suddenly froze. Whoosh! A huge fist suddenly brought along a sharp sound of wind. It was like a rock that shot out violently, causing the air to become chaotic. It suddenly blasted from the side without any warning, imprinting itself into Noah's eyes. Without any hesitation, Noah clenched his hand into a fist. With the same sharp sound of breaking wind, he met the huge fist that had entered his eyes. Bam! With a muffled sound, a violent impact force rose from the center of the two fists that collided with each other. It shook up a whirlwind, as if an invisible bomb had suddenly exploded, setting off an astonishing blast that spread out in all directions. The powerful force that was transmitted from the huge fist, which was as heavy as a rock, caused Noah to be gently pushed back. His toes repeatedly tapped on the ground, and he only came to a stop when he was pushed back by nearly 10 meters. This sudden development made all the gods and humans present, including Hestia, Aes, Loki, and Freya, unable to react. Noah slowly raised his head and looked at Otto, who was standing behind Freya like a steel tower. Compared to him, Otto had not even taken a single step back. A chilling glint gushed out from his pitch-black eyes. Although the previous blow was just a simple heavy punch, it could be seen from the fact that Noah was still pushed back more than 10 meters after blocking it. If he was hit squarely, even with the basic ability of durability, Noah would inevitably be injured. Therefore, while Noah was furious, he could not help but be a little surprised. After all, ever since he leveled up to LV2, Noah's physical ability was comparable to when he did not receive the grace, but used the enhanced magic. Under this level of strength, to be able to push Noah back so far with just one blow, unless the person had a powerful ability value comparable to Hercules' Berserker, it was really difficult to do so. At least, in Noah's opinion, it was absolutely impossible for a LV5 in this world to do so. Even a LV6 was a little difficult. Since the orc behind Freya could do it so easily, it was definitely not as simple as a LV5 or even a LV6. He belonged to the Freya clan, and his strength level was even higher than a LV6. The other party's identity was already obvious. Even if it was Noah, who had been in this world for more than a month, it was impossible for him not to have heard of his name. The only LV7 in Eulalie. The strongest existence known as the ultimate weapon. Also known as the Fierce One, Oda. Under Noah's gaze, Oda's rock-hard face became a little heavy. He stared at Noah and said emotionlessly, "That's right. I will not allow you to insult a noble goddess like me." Hearing this, Noah laughed. His laughter made Oda's pupils shrink. Bang! In the next instant, Noah abruptly shot out like an arrow. His feet stomped on the ground, and his body transformed into a black line as he shot towards Otto like a bolt of lightning. Hum! At the same time, on Noah's 4 limbs, a burst of magical power curled up and condensed into lines like electric wires. They covered Noah's limbs and gave Noah's limbs an astonishing amount of power. Oda keenly felt it. When the magical lines crawled up Noah's limbs, Noah's aura instantly increased by a lot. Furthermore, Otto already knew beforehand that Noah had the ability to easily dispose of a LV-6 and 4 LV-5s. He didn't dare to be careless in his heart. Clenching his pair of heavy fists that were as heavy as rocks, his sturdy body tensed up. He unreservedly unleashed the ferocious aura of Eulalie's only LV-7. That aura made A's, who had just leveled up to LV-6, tremble. Her pupils involuntarily shrank. Under the watchful eyes of the gods and humans who had not yet reacted to the sudden development, the distance between Noah and Oda was infinitely reduced to 0. Hoo! Almost as soon as he arrived in front of Oda, Noah's figure flashed, and extremely strangely darted to Oda's side. He clenched his right hand, and his fist was covered by a whirlwind of friction with the air. Carrying a ferocious aura, he mercilessly bombarded Oda's head. The force of the incoming heavy punch told Oda what it was. This fist, compared to the one he hastily used to block his own attack, was on a completely different level. However, Oda's face remained expressionless as he tensed up his body. His heavy fist suddenly smashed upwards, and fiercely collided with the incoming heavy fist. Bang! A muffled thunder-like sound that made one's heart contract fiercely resounded. Both Noah and Oda were simultaneously forced to take a step back. One of their feet involuntarily stepped back. Hoo! However, when one of Otto's legs took a step backwards, Noah's leg that was also involuntarily taking a step backwards. Before it could land, Noah's body rotated with his other leg as the center, transforming into a heavy whip shadow. Swinging viciously through the air, it viciously sliced towards Otto's neck amidst the howling winds. Oda's expression changed, and he fiercely raised one arm to the side of his neck. Bang! The vicious shadow of a whip heavily landed on Oda's hastily raised arm, and another muffled thunder-like explosion resounded. This blow made Oda involuntarily take another step back. However, this blow also aroused the ferocity of Eulalie's ultimate weapon. As though returning an eye for an eye, Otto abruptly turned around as he retreated. His thick and muscular thigh transformed into a deadly shadow. Like a whistling windmill, he viciously kicked at Noah's head in front of him. In the face of that ruthless kick, Noah merely sneered. With a twist of his left hand, a resplendent vortex of air instantly appeared on the surface of his fist under the vibrations of the air. Then, it abruptly collided with Otto's foot. Bang! The collision of fist and leg caused a ferocious wind to sweep out like a storm. Crack! Instantly, the ground where Noah and Otto were standing was blasted apart by the berserk impact. Like a spider web, it rapidly spread out in all directions. Humph! This time, Oda's arm was numbed by the powerful force. He let out a muffled groan, and like Noah, his entire body was forced back by the violent force of Noah's fist. Chapter 880. Dong 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 dong. This explosive boom was entirely caused by Oda's feet landing on the ground. After being knocked back by Noah's punch, Oda involuntarily retreated backwards. His footsteps pounded against the ground, shattering the hard floor with a loud bang. Unable to stop his retreating momentum, Otto could only use the powerful force to propel his sturdy body into the air. After flying a distance, he nimbly landed back on the ground with the help of gravity. After taking a few small steps back, he was finally able to neutralize the force. The banquet hall returned to silence once more. Not even a minute had passed since Oda had abruptly attacked Noah, and Noah had turned the tables on Oda. In this short span of less than a minute, Noah and Oda had engaged in a soul-stirring close combat that would leave all the experts in the world in the dust. That level of confrontation was completely beyond the reach of existences below LV-6. Without a doubt, this was definitely the highest level of individual combat in this world. That was why the humans, elves, dwarves, orcs, and Amazons who were brought here by their own gods to watch the brief duel were all dumbfounded. As for the other gods, they widened their eyes. First, they glanced at the shattered floor caused by the collision between Noah and Oda. Then, they glanced at the distant confrontation between Noah and Oda. Shortly after, they exchanged glances with the gods beside them. In the next second, their faces flushed red. Oh! Excited cheers that shook the entire banquet hall rang out. That child! He was actually able to repel that fierce one. Even the ultimate weapon was repelled. He can even resist the charm of the beauty goddess. That child! Who the hell is he? I really want that child. Ah! For the gods who came down to the mortal realm to seek entertainment out of boredom, there was nothing more exciting than this. Therefore, all the gods were excited to the peak at this moment. Not to mention the gods who were watching the show, even Hasti and Loki were excited. The former was only excited because the person who was able to compete with Eulalia's only LV7 and even beat her back was a member of his own clan. The latter was excited like the other gods who loved to watch the show. Apart from that, she also felt a strong sense of regret. After all, Loki had met Noah earlier than Hasti. At that time, Noah had not received any favor, and had not joined any clan. If Loki had seized the opportunity at that time, then Noah would very likely have become a member of Loki's clan. Unfortunately, such a treasure had been taken away by the poor shorty that Rocky hated the most. Rocky couldn't be blamed for feeling so regretful. Only AIC looked at Noah with ripples in her eyes. He has become stronger again, as the people who made the gods around them fall into a frenzy of excitement. Noah and Otto were the calmest at the scene. As if all the movements around them were shielded, Noah and Otto looked at each other, one with a sneer on his face, the other with a heavy expression. After a long time, Otto spoke in a deep voice. "You are really strong." "Same to you." Noah's face was indifferent. Eulalia's only LV7 is indeed extraordinary. This sentence was true. Although it was only a short duel, Noah already understood. Oda, who was at LV7, was definitely a match for Hercules, who had appeared as a berserker in the Holy Grail War, in terms of ability value. If Noah had not reached LV2, the one who would have been repelled would not have been Otto, but Noah. However, after reaching LV2, coupled with the enhancement magic, Noah's physical ability was not weaker than Berserker, who he had fought before. In addition, Noah's punch was launched with the Annihilation Strike technique. Otto, whose physical ability was on par with Berserker, was repelled by Noah's punch. With the current strength, if Noah were to fight that great hero again, the one who would be at a disadvantage would not be him. It was only natural that Otto would be repelled. But Otto looked coldly at Noah. "You shouldn't have insulted my noble goddess." "Shouldn't have?" Noah laughed sarcastically. "But I did. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do?" Otto's face was stern. "I want you to die as an apology." Following this fierce roar, a ferocious aura like that of a ferocious beast gushed out from Oda's body. Moreover, it grew denser and denser, causing the faces of those people in the banquet hall to slightly change from the pressure. Shortly after, Otto's feet landed on the ground with a loud rumble, causing spiderweb-like cracks to spread out on the ground. His body leaned forward, transforming into a sharp arrow as he shot explosively towards Noah. Wherever they passed, a gully was dug open. It was like a scar that was imprinted on the ground, causing the banquet hall to become a complete mess at this moment. Sensing the ferocious aura around Otto, Noah's eyes flashed, and a faint magic power rose from his body. In the blink of an eye, Otto appeared in front of Noah, raising his fist high. On his fist, a frantic wind swirled back and forth like a whirlpool, looking extremely frightening. Ha! With a stifled low roar, Otto's fist, which was filled with frantically swirling winds, was accompanied by a sonic boom as it ferociously smashed towards Noah's head. Looking at the fist that was getting closer and closer, and feeling the oppressive wind coming from it, Noah's dark and deep eyes flashed with a fierce light. In his heart, the stone plate that was connected to the outline of the 10 pictures began to flash with a bright light. Just as Otto's fist was about to land on Noah's head, and Noah was prepared to no longer hold back and use his true strength to smash Otto into pieces, a voice slowly rang out. "Otto, that voice was softer than anything else. However, upon hearing this voice, Otto's figure fiercely froze. His ferocious fist stopped less than 5 centimeters away from Noah's face. The wind it carried caused Noah's bangs to flutter. As if nothing had happened, the ferocious aura on Otto's body completely disappeared. His body also slowly relaxed. Withdrawing his fist, he expressionlessly retreated. Seeing this, Noah's brows furrowed. He turned his head and looked towards the source of the voice. There, the silver-haired goddess was staring at Noah with eyes more fervent than ever. She took a deep breath and smiled. "My apologies, my follower was rude." Those words seemed calm, but anyone could hear the fanaticism in them. Ha! Freya's beautiful smile made the surrounding people gulp. It was as if she only had eyes for Noah. She said in an intoxicated manner, "I'm really sorry. Originally, I didn't want to use such a method to get you. But once I saw you, I completely lost my cool. Fortunately, charm doesn't work on you. As expected of the man I love deeply. I want you more and more." Freya's undisguised love for him caused the surrounding gods and humans to cast their gazes on Noah. Their eyes were filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred, as well as surprise and admiration. Obviously, no one would have thought that the goddess of beauty, Freya, would confess her love for Noah here. But Noah's face was cold. He mercilessly retorted to Freya's perverted passion. "Then I'm really sorry. I have no interest in you at all. You'd better go home and eat by yourself." After saying this, Noah walked towards the entrance of the banquet hall under the stunned gazes of the surrounding gods and humans. Hestia, Loki, and Aes followed him without hesitation. Freya did not say anything to stop him. She continued to stare at Noah's back with a fervent gaze. Her face gradually flushed red. "You're mine. You must be mine." Chapter 881. As soon as they walked out of the venue, which was managed by the guild and rented to the clan, Noah exhaled deeply, his brows furrowed even tighter. What's the matter with that love-struck goddess? Until now, the source of the scorching gaze that had been unbridled in Noah's direction was very obvious. It was Freya. But why would Freya treat him like that? Noah couldn't think of a reason at all. Just because I have extraordinary strength, she took a fancy to me and wanted to poach me into Freya's clan? Noah was perplexed as he recalled Freya's passionate gaze and her unconcealable love for him. That doesn't seem to be the case. What's going on? As soon as he finished speaking, a voice answered Noah's question. You're right. That love-struck goddess has taken a fancy to you. With such a voice, Loki, who was dressed in men's clothing, walked out of the venue. Behind Loki, Hestia and Aeth were there as well. As soon as Hestia came out, she pounced on Noah and hugged him, her face full of excitement. Noah. You're really amazing. Even that Valiant is no match for you. No one in Eulalia can beat you in a one-on-one fight. Being hugged by Hestia, Noah immediately felt a very soft touch spreading in front of him, which made him a little shaken. He reached out his hand and hit Hestia's head hard. Bang! With a muffled sound, Hestia hugged her head and squatted down with tears in the corner of her eyes. Didn't I tell you not to hug me so easily? Noah withdrew his hand from Hestia's head and sighed. Ignoring Hestia, who was looking at him with resentment, he turned his head and looked at Loki. You said that love-struck goddess has taken a fancy to me? What's going on? Do you want to know the truth? The eyeballs in Loki's narrowed eyes turned slightly, and he smiled treacherously as he said this. If you want to know, then say goodbye to this poor shorty and join my clan. How about that? Hearing this, Hestia, who was crouching down with her hands on her head, suddenly jumped up. She pointed at Loki and shouted. Don't try to steal my girl. You're an airport. Loki was successfully detonated. He bared his fangs and rushed towards Hestia. Don't call me airport runway. Wah 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 wah. The two goddesses, one big and one small, immediately got into a scuffle. They pinched each other's cheeks and cursed at each other. Such a good child should stay in the most powerful clan tribe. You poor shorty, you are simply wasting God's gift. As if. A good child should have a gentle and kind Lord God to guide him. How can a salty Lord God like you, who only knows how to take advantage of the girls in the clan, be suitable? Do you think a shorty who only knows how to be a leech is suitable? You're just being raised by that child. Which Lord God isn't being raised by a child? Do you dare to say that you're not? And you only know how to take advantage of girls. Or only take advantage of girls. I won't let you give Noah to this airport runway. Humph. How can a shorty who doesn't understand how delicious cute girls are understand my taste? I don't want to understand the taste of the salty Lord God. What's more, you're an airport runway. Didn't I say you're not allowed to call me an airport runway? I told you. You airport runway. Airport runway. Airport runway. Detestable god of poverty shorty. I'll fight with you. Wah wah. Don't pull my clothes. You salty Lord God. As they quarreled, Loki began to pull at Hestia's gown, causing the gown, which was on the verge of collapsing because of the binding of Hestia's foul upper body, to ripple violently. That scene was really too hurtful to the eyes, and even AIC's face was a little red. Noah could only hold his forehead and sigh, and looked at AIC for help. Can't you think of a way? AIC blinked her eyes and looked at Loki and Hesti who were fighting on the ground. She lowered her head helplessly and said in frustration, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Noah's sigh became heavier. He narrowed his eyes and raised his hand. Suddenly, golden ripples reverberated around Hestia and Loki. The next moment, silver chains with wedges of different shapes protruded from the golden ripples and shot toward Hestia and Loki like arrows, causing a series of clanging sounds as the chains wrapped around the two goddesses. As the chains pulled, Hestia and Loki, who were wrestling together, cried out in alarm at the same time. They were pulled into the air and tied up by the chains. What? What is this? Chains? What are those golden ripples? It seemed that Hestia and Loki did not notice Noah's actions. It could be seen that when the two were wrestling, they only had eyes for each other. It was quite a bitter hatred. Loki. Noah went straight to the point. What's the matter with that love-struck goddess? Let go of me first. Loki struggled. How dare you treat a god like this? You're blaspheming a god. Hearing this, Noah's forehead was imprinted with the word, well, and he put on a fake smile. Do you want me to hang you up on the Tower of Babel and let all the adventurers who want to go to the dungeon see you as a god tomorrow? Rocky's struggling body suddenly stopped, and the expression on his face stiffened. He could only look at AIC with a pitiful expression. AIC Tan, hurry up and save me. AIC turned her head away expressionlessly, as if she was saying that she didn't see anything. This made Loki give up. I know. You just want to know why that love-struck fool fell in love with you, right? Loki snorted coldly and turned his head away. That love-struck fool has eyes that can directly see the souls of children in the mortal world, and she will be infatuated with those children whose souls are particularly brilliant. That's the so-called love. I guess that love-struck fool saw your soul, and the brilliance of your soul is more dazzling than ordinary people's. That's why she fell in love with you. As he said this, Loki looked at Noah strangely. In the past, that love-struck fool used her ability to charm the children she fancied, but you can actually ignore the charm of a beauty. Little guy, who are you? Noah did not answer Loki's question. Instead, he turned his head and looked at Hestia. That beauty is really fickle. She ate almost all the male gods. She didn't even let go of the children in the family tribe, right? Hesti yelled at Noah in an imposing manner. No matter what, Noah, you can't be deceived by that fickle goddess. Only I, who is known as one of the three goddesses and has always maintained my purity, is the most suitable for you. The corner of Noah's mouth twitched. What does she mean by maintaining her purity is the most suitable? It's not a blind date. In short, you can resist the charm of a beauty, and the fierce one can't do anything to you. That love-struck fool probably won't dare to do it openly, but she must have a lot of tricks up her sleeves. You'd better be careful. Loki curled his lips. Although it makes me very unhappy to let this little shorty have you, it will only make me even more unhappy if that love-struck fool has you. Why don't you just join my family tribe? You're an airport. Don't even think about it. You're calling me an airport again. Ah. The two goddesses immediately bared their fangs and brandished their claws at each other under the shackles of the chains. They were like two clowns, and people who saw them couldn't help but want to laugh. Ignoring the two goddesses who bared their fangs and brandished their claws at each other under the shackles of the chains, Noah fell into deep thought. The brilliance of the soul. At this time, Noah felt his sleeve being pulled. Noah turned his head and looked at his side. There, AIC pulled Noah's sleeve, looked straight at Noah, tilted her head, and said softly, "Are you okay?" Hearing this, Noah was startled and immediately smiled. "No problem, I can handle it." Only then did AIC's pretty face relax a little. She then mustered up her courage and said, "That agreement, does it still count?" "Agreement?" Noah was startled. Chapter 882. The next day, when Noah woke up from his sleep, he immediately found something different from before. The specific manifestation was that under Noah's quilt, there was a very warm and very soft thing lying in his arms, making Noah feel as if he was hugging it more comfortable than any pillow in the world. Aware of this feeling, Noah was immediately awakened, and immediately seemed to think of something. A wry smile appeared on his face, and he lifted the quilt on his body. Under the quilt, there was a petite girl with long black hair that fell like a waterfall in front of Noah, hugging him tightly, like a child worried that her toy would be snatched away, unconsciously rubbing against Noah's chest, sleeping soundly. That, of course, was Hestia. Yesterday, after coming out of the banquet held by Freya's family, Hestia had not left Noah for a moment. It should be said that there was not a moment when she was not sticking to Noah, right? That was something that couldn't be helped. After all, whether it was Freya or Loki, they were very blatant with the idea of poaching Noah away from Hestia and let Noah join their family. Because of this, Hestia didn't say it on the surface, and even could talk to Loki, but in fact, she was a little uneasy. After all, whether it was Freya's family or Loki's family, they were the most powerful family in Eulalia, and they were even called the two kings of Eulalia. How could Hestia not feel uneasy when the main god of such a spawn personally came out with the idea of poaching Noah into his spawn? Compared to Freya's family and Loki's family, who were known as the two kings of Eulalia, if Hestia's family lost Noah, it could be said that there was nothing left. In addition, Noah had shown strength comparable to LV7 in front of almost all the gods in Eulalia yesterday, so he would definitely attract the attention of the main gods of the other clans. Therefore, the uneasiness in Hestia's heart was even stronger. Even though Noah had always said that he wasn't interested in those so-called powerful spawns, Hestia still didn't feel at ease. As a result, Hestia stuck to Noah all day long, and even at night, she did not intend to let go of Noah. When Noah was about to go to sleep, she got into his quilt, as if once she let go of Noah, he would disappear from her sight, which made Noah not know whether to laugh or cry. Noah had no choice but to comply with Hestia's wishes and let her do as she pleased. Looking at Hestia's extremely cute sleeping face, Noah could not help but smile, reached out his hand and stroked Hestia's hair. "You don't look like a goddess at all. You're just an ordinary girl." With such a sentence, Noah gently broke away from Hestia's embrace. It had to be said that Hestia was really a very dangerous goddess. Mainly in the aspect of figure. Undoubtedly, she was so petite, but almost no one could ignore certain parts of her body. That would be too much of a foul. Therefore, even Noah couldn't control his heart from wavering in the face of such a contrast. Not to mention that Hestia had always been unguarded against Noah, and in a way, she had been providing all kinds of benefits to Noah. If Noah continued to be hugged by Hestia like this, he would really lose control of himself. He could only hurriedly break free from Hestia's embrace. He tried his best not to disturb Hestia's sleep, got out of bed, put on his clothes, and quietly walked out of the room. When Noah came out of the room, Baal had already gotten up and was wearing light armor in the hall. After seeing Noah come out, he immediately greeted him respectfully. "Leader, good morning." "Good morning, Baal." Noah put on his outer clothes and chatted casually with Baal. "Are you going to the dungeon today?" "Yes." Baal nodded heavily. "Leader, please guide me today." Ever since the Minotaur incident, Baal had become much more determined than before. In the past, Baal only wanted to become an adventurer because he was looking for opportunities in the dungeon. Now, Baal sincerely wanted to become stronger. Thus, Baal had been working hard these days, and his improvement was much greater than before. Just yesterday, Noah had allowed Belle to go to the area below the 7th floor alone. However, Noah had repeatedly told him that level 10 was the limit. Now, Baal was not allowed to go below level 10. "By the way, Baal," Noah suddenly said, "I won't be going to the dungeon with you today." Baal didn't expect Noah to say that, and he was taken aback. "You won't be going to the dungeon with me?" "That's right. Your combat skills have basically taken shape. Next, I don't need to personally teach you. You just need to constantly improve your combat skills in actual combat. That will be enough." Noah shrugged. "Moreover, I can't always be your nanny. It's time for you to explore the dungeon yourself." "Myself?" Baal was uneasy. "Will it be fine if I go alone?" "Yes, as long as you don't go below level 10, there shouldn't be a problem." Noah nodded. "Of course, there's always an accident. If there's an accident, don't hesitate. Run away first. Don't force yourself. Understand?" "Yes, sir." Baal obeyed the order. "Then, you'll go to the dungeon alone today." Noah walked towards the door. "I have something to do. Remember to come back before nightfall." "Yes, team leader." Baal obeyed. Under Baal's watchful gaze, Noah opened the door and went outside. He entered the bustling street. However, just as Noah was about to walk towards one of the streets, there was a commotion in the crowd. Noah subconsciously turned his head and looked in the direction of the commotion. Then, he was startled. Rumble, at the end of the street, a group of people were running like wild beasts. Behind them was a cloud of smoke. They were swarming towards Noah. They were all gods. Moreover, they were all goddesses. "Found you." Amidst the exhilarating shouts, Noah, who was completely petrified on the spot, was suddenly surrounded by a group of gods. Some of the goddesses even hugged him tightly. "We've finally found you, little guy." Noah, who was surrounded, was directly immersed in the fragrance and softness of a group of goddesses. He was completely stunned and even cried out in astonishment. What's going on?" This question was answered in the next second. Because the goddesses who surrounded Noah started to make a ruckus. "Hey, do you want to join my family tribe? I'll love you dearly. What that Lolita goddess has, so do we. I don't understand why you want to join Hestia's family tribe. Come to me." "Yes, yes." Don't tell me you've taken a fancy to Hestia's magnificent upper body? If that's the case, then you're even more qualified to be part of my clan. Look, I'm not inferior to Hestia at all." Saying this, the goddesses suddenly raised their heads and puffed out their chests. They desperately squeezed Noah's body, giving Noah a heavenly treatment that would make ordinary men emit black smoke and resentment. More importantly, these goddesses were all as ferocious as wolves and tigers, extremely valiant. "By the way, we have all inquired. Undoubtedly, you don't even have a title, and your level is at most LV2, right? Why can you resist the valiant warrior? Because of the physique? Because of the skill? Or magic? Rare skill? Is it a rare skill? It must be a rare skill. I really want to see your ability value. No. I can't help but want to take off this child's clothes. Good idea. A man who can't even be taken down by the valiant warrior. It really makes my blood boil. Look carefully, aren't you the child who saw us naked in the bathhouse last time? Yes, yes. Then it's okay to let us see your body, right? Don't talk about it, just take it off. Noah's face turned green for the first time in his life. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.